Yeah, Dong, your conversation with Keith was pretty good too. I like that a lot.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'm just guessing that Dong's conversation with anyone is probably pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dong's conversation with me, I don't even know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not that smart.
I
Hey,
love
Ben,
me
do
some
you
I love
just
me
wear
some
like
Dong.
Thank you.
do you just have the orange glasses like by default? Is it just like the standard issue orange
No, I
glass?
don't know who sent. No, yeah, Boston Re you guys sent this to me.
My bad, guys.
You guys sent this to me and I've been wearing these and dude, like, I don't, I'm maintenance, so I don't roll around using these. It's not like I go to every show and it's not like I'm a coral fragger or something, but it's like the world is just more special with these on.
Yeah, my father does the same thing. He's got about 15 pairs.
Really?
I was reorganizing some merch like out in the garage the other day, and he's like, "Oh, I took that dilapidated box and there's a couple of smaller boxes. Everything's got to be tidy for him, right?" And I'm like, "All right, cool." And I was like, "Wait, why do you have three more pairs of glasses, buddy?" I'm like, "Those things aren't free, bud."
No, it's just crazy.
Come
Like
back.
the grass is greener, the sky is different. Like,
Yeah,
and I mean, I'm 49 years old. I got 3 kids. Like, I ain't trying to impress anybody. And it's just like, the world looks cooler with these on.
it's like back in the rave days coming out
Yeah.
when the sun's coming up. It's like, whoa.
Good luck.
Yeah.
You guys ready to roll?
Let's
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
man.
All right. I just
Smoke if you
my
got
name's
'em.
Paul. I'm the president of the Boston Reefers Society. I want to thank you all for coming to our stream here with Mr. Ben Johnson. Those that don't know, Ben has been professionally employed in the aquarium industry since 1995. From retail stores to wholesalers to a zookeeper at the Houston Zoo, until he finally started his own company in 2004 and has been self-employed ever since. Ben owns and operates captive aquatic ecosystems in Houston, Texas. He has spoken at Amacna, several aquashellas, and at Reefstock. He is also the co-host of the famous ReefBeef podcast. So thank you again, Ben, for agreeing to come on and
Man, you know
shoot
me
the
real
bat with
well.
us.
That just sounds like you just made all that up on the
I
spot.
know, right? Like 3 hours ago.
We're blood brothers.
Hell yeah, man. I'm down. So gladly give you the floor or anybody that, anything that you want to talk about, anything that, these
Give
guys want to get into. I have a couple of,
give the
random.
floor to the people.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone have any questions right off the rip? Or do you guys want me to go through my spiel here?
Why don't you kick it off and then we'll add to it.
Hell
Oh,
yeah.
dude, I love the costumes.
Yeah.
I couldn't have you feeling like lonely here with the
No, hell yeah. I mean, that's like obviously that's part of my shtick, but I love it.
Yeah.
Just turn it
Corey
into a
Page
game.
wanted to say hello. He's down at the casino for a concert, but he wanted to make sure that he's here in spirit, Mr. Ben.
Who is this?
Corey Page. He's
Corey
our vice
Page.
president. But,
Hell yes, Corey Page.
he's like, tell him I said hi. I'm gonna be like, no, I'm not telling him, dude. Like that's on
20
you.
bucks, 20 bucks.
Send him a message, yeah.
Yeah.
But so I mean, I just have basic questions like, how long have you been in the hobby? Like, how'd you get into it? Like, what point did you decide to make the hobby a business? If it was a hobby before it was a business, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Let me try to remember with my crappy memory, like all those questions in a row. Um, um, I was into aquariums when I was a kid, but I mean, this is just, I'm not counting that as my experience because this was just like low level shit. I'm a kid and here's some fish. And, I wasn't serious into it. I would say I wasn't serious into it until my senior year of high school. And for whatever reason, I just way got into it. And without trying to go into a whole long thing, I not for lack of intelligence, but for lack of attention capacity. I just wanted to be out of school, and so I didn't try super hard in high school, which gave me like mediocre grades. And my brother has a PhD, and my sister has like a master's degree, and they were both like, "Come on, blah blah blah." And so I was like, "Okay." And I tried to join the Marines. This was in 1994, but I had childhood epilepsy. So I got as far as to the like the MEPS military entrance program thing in Dallas. And then when they saw on the piece of paper that I had childhood epilepsy, it was like a record scratch. And also, too, you got to realize this was 1994. This was Bill Clinton, and they were downsizing the military from the first Gulf War. So, like, if you had any sort of blip, they didn't even want to talk about it. They were trying to shrink the military. So, when that sort of ended for me, I fought it a little bit. But when that ended for me, and I was like, what the hell now? Well, I was working at a pet store. And it's like, I think it's the reason I bring all that up is because it sort of set the stage where I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. My brother tried to get me to go to college, but I was like, man, I already couldn't barely get through high school. I'm totally ADHD. So like if I'm into it, holy shit, dude, I'm like a laser from space. But if I'm not, I just have the hardest time forcing myself to be in anything. And I just noticed that at the job that I had at the time, I could see a Latin name, Pleurogyrus sinuosa, whatever, Holocanthus ciliaris. I could see a Latin name, and all it was at the time was a skater. Okay. And I just know that when I'd go to work and like learn something, it just fucking stuck. And so that's what sort of set me there. I was like, well, why not this? And so I guess that's what happened. I just full steam ahead dove into it, you know, which there's a funny period. Now now I do all these things. So it's like, okay, I had made it, but there was an interim period there, like, it's obvious early in your career. You're like, what? I'm a fish tank cleaner guy. Like I'm like the swimming pool guy. Like not to disparage swimming pool guys, but just you know what I'm saying. You're like, what am I doing with this? But I just kept going deeper and deeper, and that's why in my retail career I worked for so many different stores because, and I don't want this to sound. Grant, I can't do that right now. Go get Sissy to do that. We just went swimming. He want me to put the swimming ears things in his ear, but why don't you go catch a pigeon and bring it to me in a hamper?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
y'all see that on the Reef Builders stream? We were recording the Reef Builders stream. Well, it was live streaming, and my son just brought me a hurt pigeon and a clothes hamper, and I was like, they
That's
were
awesome.
tripping out. No, it was just I was learning. I'd say, what's a cool store? So I'd go work there. When I'd find out after anywhere from a year to 2 years, I was like, I know more than these people. So what's the next better store? I go to this store. A year to 2 years later, I was just sucking it up. It was the one thing in my life where my brain was just retaining everything about it. So I guess I just kept following that. And it just by following that, it just led me up the rung of, more responsibilities and more knowledge and better places and so on and so forth. And I basically did that until then I became a zookeeper at the Houston Zoo. And anyone here that's in public aquariums, you know that too. Like it's cool for a little bit, but it can be monotonous because you have an exhibit and it's just like only take care of that exhibit. But I'm a creative, obviously. And it's like, and if I'm not like creating new systems, I don't know. I get anxiety sort of or antsy. Even in my own business, if it's been a while since I took on a new client, I always need a challenge because even though making my clients that I've had for a long time happy, that's a challenge. But it's like I always need a new system to tackle and something to fix and something to change and stuff like that. And if I don't get that challenge, I just get a little depressed, basically.
Yeah, keep things fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that, man. I get bored with the same thing, to be honest. It sucks because like I just started a new build in like well, technically in like November. Like I took my old system down and stuck it out in a 300 gallon and like out in the garage and like whatever. But I like the build out process, and like getting things just right. Like that's exciting to me. Like, past life I worked construction for 20 years. Like I like to make stuff. I like to build stuff. And so the build out's cool for me. Don't get me wrong, like growing out colonies and stuff look great, but I get bored with it. Like everything's pretty much automated at this point, calcium reactor, whatever, testing, et cetera. And I'm just like, I got nothing to do.
Well, but right, that's the thing with reef tanks, right? Because like anyone, and I'm not saying you're saying that, but I'm just saying anyone that's saying like, oh, I haven't had this problem or that problem, it's like you ain't been doing it long enough.
I've had every
Trust me.
problem.
that thing will geek the fuck out and you'll be
Oh.
all hands on deck. I mean, that's just reef aquariums.
Yeah, tell
But
me about it.
what I was going to say is the weird juxtaposition is then my job to my existing clients. And I have clients that I've had for, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years. I think I have a customer that's going on 15 years, but it's like, that's my job, is to make that sucker as stable as possible. And that's obviously a trick too. But, throughout those like 15 years, it's like, oh, let's take off this thing and do that. And hey, sir, can we change the lights from this to that? You got to try to talk people into things. And I won't go too long on that, but that's a whole, God, dude, from just being a hobbyist to then doing this for people. That's a whole thing that I wonder that some people don't consider, because I don't get to make whatever the hell change I want. I have to convince someone who might actually be a real cheap ass. So that's why I'm trying not to go too off on a tangent, but my whole career, I've worked around millionaires. Now, I'm originally from Denton, Texas, which is a small town north of Dallas, and we lived on the outskirts of Denton. So I'm a dude from a small town. I would say we were lower middle class. Like, all my clothes were hand-me-downs from my older brother. Like, I didn't get to have whatever the hell I want. I'm not trying to make it out like I was eating ketchup sandwiches, but I'm just saying we didn't have a lot of money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And last time I spoke with y'all, I told y'all about that too, because my first pet store job, like, I was slinging freshwater, because I'd look over at saltwater and I was like, dude, I can't even afford a filter, at that age that I was. I didn't have that kind of money. I'm not from that kind of family. But it's been weird working around millionaire and billionaires, and it took me a long time to develop all these skills. But these are these jokes of like these tightwad millionaires, and it's not just an unfounded trope. It is a thing. Now, I think it's goofy when people say, "Oh, rich people do this, rich people do that." I'm here to tell you, because I've worked for them for decades, is that rich people are just like poor people. We all wipe our ass. We all have these issues. But what I find though, and definitely I've worked for crazy cheap ass millionaires, and then people that seems like they just got money and they're just throwing it, and I'm just trying to jump into the waterfall of their cash. But as a rule, that, oh, he's rich, he'll upgrade to Radeons. It's just not like that. Like, my experiences, and also to be on the good foot with your client, is you have to know your client's personality pretty well. And my thing is like, oh, he's a millionaire, he's not going to spend the money, or whichever narrative that you're saying. Like, with the ones that are tightwads, they're tightwads for a reason, I've come to find out. Because you're this rich person, and imagine if you were loaded beyond belief. Every time anyone finds that out, a contractor, a relative, whatever, they just find out you've got money, they're just trying to get at that money. So I think, in my opinion, a lot of the wealthy people I'm used to dealing with is they're a little guarded, and that's what makes them seem cheap. It's just they're guarded. You know what I'm saying? And so the reason I've found out is just honesty is so important to me in my business. Because, like, if I'm suggesting an upgrade, first of all, I better know it like the back of my fucking hand, because I'm not going to suggest, hey, Robert, can we put this thing on there? Oh, what does it do? Well, all these people are saying it's good, or some bullshit like that. You gotta be. That's why they're like, nah, pass. Maybe we'll look at it 6 months from now. These suggestions that you give to these wealthy clients, you got to be Johnny on the spot. So your old one's doing this, the new one does this, it's better, and here's the like money cost and blah blah blah. You gotta. It's just when you badly explain something to a wealthy client, why they'll turn you down. But if
No, I
it's
get it.
truly detrimental to their tank, you got to lay that case out.
Yeah, no, I get it. Years back, a friend of mine had a service company. I used to go with him. He had a couple of, he had a guy that used to come into the store, and he was an agent for a couple of like New England Patriots players.
Yeah.
And these guys, they were like third string guys. They weren't like the multi-million, like stupid money contracts, but they still
Yeah.
made, $500,000 a year. And I remember this one guy, I can't remember his name, but, this big mega mansion we'd go over there and like when he was like away on a game, AC would be on, his fiance was there, help yourself to, so and so's booze, like, like whatever, food's in the fridge, like basically you run the show, you're here, do whatever you want. But when he was there, dude, you'd go there on like a 95-degree day, it'd be 110 degrees in the house with the windows open, the humidity, there was like sweat on the walls.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, hey, can I get a glass of water? And be like, you didn't bring a drink with you?
You didn't bring your
just
own
like,
glass? Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell, dude? But yeah, it's funny, man.
No,
but-
it is funny. I'll quit talking after this and let y'all ask a bunch of questions, but you're just making me think, because I think one of my biggest pride and joys is because before I moved to Houston, I'm from the Dallas area, but for 2 years I cleaned Emmett Smith's aquarium, and he was still playing at that time. But I think while I cleaned his tank, I think he had gone to the Cardinals before he then retired. But it was a cool experience. He had a bunch of tanks in his house. I know I talked about it a little bit last time. But then Texas is one of those states that doesn't have that like income tax for, personal income tax. And so there'll be a lot of athletes from other places. Cause I remember, I didn't run my own thing back then. I worked for a company, and then my boss was like, hey, we need you to go down the road, clean this one tank. And it was a dude with the Raiders. And I just remember that's when I learned it way back when, because I came back, told my boss, like, why is a dude from the Raiders living in Plano, Texas? And he's like, well, it's because, Texas doesn't have that income tax. So you could either stay in your city if that's what's important to you, or, you could save millions of dollars by move. But, the difference between like Emmett Smith's crib in this, he was like, I don't even remember the dude's name that was with the Raiders, but he looked like even in the worst case scenario, an NFL player still makes big jack, but it was just like a regular house,
Yeah, that's what they say. That's the reason why Joe Rogan moved to Texas. He's no income tax on in California was like 30% or something crazy.
Big
But
time.
so I got a question here from Ben saying that
Another Ben.
Yeah, that's the other Ben that looks like you when he first get on here.
Oh, hell yeah.
Guys.
He wanted to ask about aquascape and new tanks. Like, do you
Yeah, so
build
I'm
with
Ben, I'm
live
just
rock?
about to-
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm setting up I've said it, I've been similar to you, like at this since I was a young man.
Yeah.
But I'm building a 300 right now, and in the past I've done like, back in the day I'd make them with live rock, and then the last tank I made with dry rock, and just kind of like then let it. That's like the big advantage there was building these fancy reef structures,
Yeah.
and then just sit them in the tank and they look amazing, and then it has to go through its whole cycle.
Totally.
This time I've been like cooking rock in a huge tub and running the skimmer and everything, hoping that the rock is going to be all nice, understanding that you got to limit expectations. But and then I have to like figure out how to build this into a reef structure, like, epoxy, or do like the super glue and sand method or whatever. I was wondering with like, every time you get a new client, you set up a new tank. Are you typically doing it with live rock and like stacking and building in the tank, or do you like epoxy things together, even if it's live outside the tank, and then move this whole thing in? Like, what's like your go-to method these days?
So obviously it has to do with two things: the size of the tank, and then what the client's wallet can bear, So, if it's a large tank and the client is wealthy and I can talk them into that, I want to make sculptures. Now, since I've been doing this for so long, when I first started, it's interesting, and it might be different regionally. When I first started doing this, and I want all the old school reefers to like show up, because when I first started, it was Marshall Island live rock. And it was the best. I'm trying not to do this thing like, is that just my memory so fucking long ago? But dude, Marshall Island rock was fucking insane. Like thick ass coralline, those purple, like paint out of a bucket. And I think I experienced Marshall Islands for the first 2 to 3 years of my career. And then there was something about how they just said you can't get that from Marshall Islands anymore. And then it went to Fiji. It was all Fiji rock at that point. But in 2008, we had a giant hurricane here in Houston, and I had a 100-gallon vat of Fiji rock sort of cooking in my garage, and the hurricane wiped that out. So I can definitively point to 2008 was the last time that I ever really messed with doing so much live rock, real live rock. That was the nail in the coffin for me, 2008, because it destroyed all this, and I was like, what the crap? But then at about that time, like live dry rock was just getting more and more popular around that time, and I was like, fuck it, if you can't beat them, join them, you know. But and to this day, I still have a vet, because sometimes I take tanks down, and it's funny because I listen to tons of podcasts, and I know, I'm trying to think of all these things like, can that much phosphate like bind up an old live rock and old substrate? And like a lot of times I'm like on the fence, like, can it, can't it? And obviously I'm around people in the industry that are way smarter than me, and I get to ask them, like Craig Bingman, people like that. I get to ask them like what they think of that. And again, on the fence, whatever. But I've always just keep using all this dry rock that I have. I cannot stand like Marco rock. To me, in my opinion, it's too dense and heavy. I don't like it. Um, and I can't tell you what rock out there that I like, because I'm still feeding off of, as much as I'd set up a reef tank, another one would come down, or I'd come into contact with someone taking one down. I scrub it, I bleach it in the driveway. Now, what you said, which is really important to me, and Rich and I talk about it a lot, is don't just go BRS style, throwing a tank together with dry rock and have much expectations.
Right.
You want that rock to be in the environment. And there's this word phrase that Rich came up with. I don't think he made it up, but I'd never really heard it before, is benthic succession. But it's just like if you took a forest and burnt it down with a fire. So benthic succession is the first weeds and grasses that are showing up in the beginning. They're not desirable to the forest in the long run, but that's what starts showing up. So you throw a tank together with dry rock and you crank lights on it with nothing in there, you're going to have diatoms, you're going to have cyanobacteria, you're going to have derbesia, you're going to have everything is this benthic succession. But so on this part right here, I'm speaking out of my ass a little bit, but it's just, I've been around this enough to know that when you get like, I'm not making a definitive statement here, but I'm just saying when this piece of rock has been in the water for a while and it has like bacterial colonies, I feel like they maybe fight for these spaces with algae at least a little bit and make it a little harder for algae to just show up. So, like I said, if you just get a dry rock and put it in there, yeah, boom, covered in diatoms and covered in hair algae, then it's the going through the benthic succession.
Yeah.
So try to get it to do that. Now, you asked what I like to put things together with. I like from Champion Lighting and Supply, they have SeaTac, and it's just this real gummy type stuff. Now, I'm not great with it underwater. I find it's too hard to work with for me underwater. What I like doing is like building I could even be cooking rock, and then when I want to start to make something, I can pull that out of the water and start using SeaTac like out of the water, let it sit for a little bit and then move it back in. I do like the E400 that Marco, it's basically hydraulic cement is what
Right.
that is. There might be some sort of stabilizer, like I don't know where else to get like a something similar to that on Amazon, but Marco Rock E400, I built a whole structure using just that. It's messy and whatnot, but and I love super glue, even if you use baking soda or whatever it is and all that, but like it can be a little brittle, and I wouldn't trust big structures with that. With that, I would go more towards like SeaTac. I did a lot of stuff in the past with Epo Putty, which I don't know how many people are familiar with that. But back in the day on Reef to Reef, there was this dude from Thailand, Ching Chai Ukratham, and he
Right.
had the most badass reef
Yeah, that
in the
thing's
world.
amazing.
And I remember it was a million years ago, and I went on Reef to Reef and I asked him, like, how'd you put that together? And Epo Putty. And then I found a friend of mine brought that in. And I do still to this day, I like Epo Putty a lot, but I end up not really using it anymore. If I remember correctly, maybe it's a little pricey, which doesn't really matter too much if I'm building an expensive thing for someone. But it's a two-part epoxy, but it has nothing in common with any of the other two-part epoxies. You know how those other ones, and they dry brittle, and I could make something out of like two little fishies, two-part epoxy. I could make a structure out of it and throw it on the ground, and it would break where I made those epoxy sections. Epo Putty is not like that. When it dries, it's like bone, and the whole rock will break, and then the EPO will still be sitting there. So EPO putty, and I think it comes from Taiwan, I think. But
Okay.
you work it until it feels like bubble gum, and then you can start pushing it around. None of the other two parts are like that at all. I wouldn't try to build a structure out of any other two-part epoxy that I know of. There's a bunch of other stuff that people in the industry use too. I can't remember the names of them. Matt Wandell is a friend of mine and a big inspiration to me a lot of times. And there's some like epoxy that public aquarium people use. I can't remember what it's called, but it's pretty badass.
Do you
But
ever
I
do
was,
like the PVC rods or anything like that to
yeah, if
straighten?
you want to get something kind of wicked, man, my one complaint though is aesthetically, like when people do that, if they don't cover it enough, it just looks janky. And it's one of those hard things to say. Like I didn't go to Juilliard School of Art to like get an eye for it. It's just your eye develops over time. And if I could just look at a tank and just see these like right angles or whatever, and it's like, oh, a human did that.
Right.
Because I want to be able to look at your reef tank and think like, oh, damn, that I'll be honest, that's part of what makes me think a reef tank is nice. If I look at it and it's like, damn, boom, that looks like the ocean. It does
Yeah.
not look like someone try to intentionally make some stupid thing hanging off. But if you can do it artfully, yeah. Now I would tell you consider using schedule 80 instead of schedule 40 because it'll just be better in the long run. You don't have to use a big pipe. I would think that 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch schedule 80 would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
you'd want to
cool.
work the things around it and maybe use cable tie. And there's a thing. If you used a cable tie to really secure something, we'll cover it up with C-tack or Epo putty or something. Cover that. Don't let all that stuff show. Or you could consider when you just say if it's an egregious, it's showing like a cable tie. Which I would tell you too. If you do cable ties, do 2 cable ties somewhere instead of 1, because over time one of them will break for sure.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it could be a spot where you're putting a coral right there, and then no one will ever see it.
Nice.
My first system consisted of a PVC structure with zip tied Fiji and Fossil Island rock back
Yeah.
in 2003, 2004, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
In a 44-gallon Pentagon. I was
Oh,
like, this is the best tank in the world, man. I
like
just got
hexagons and pentagons, and those always leak. Those
I
drive
just
me.
got laid off from my job. I had, whatever, baby mama drama, 2 kids in diapers, mortgage, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey,
I
that's
got
the best
one.
time to start up an expensive as hell
Hell
hobby.
yeah, an expensive hobby. Yeah, I was like, that's it. I'm gonna buy it. I washed it on my parents' front lawn with dish soap,
Yeah.
and I was like, I didn't know anything from anything, but
Man, it's funny. I recall situations when I'm talking to people, and it's like I've been in so many, I've given quotes to just thousands of people, and there was a time, it was like a couple years ago, but seriously, I went out to give someone a quote and look at their situation. Now, I spend a lot of time when someone calls me, I don't just show up and go, "Oh crap, I'm in a trailer park." It sounds crazy, but you have to do this as a business. I'll first ask for their address, and then I'll like Google their address, and it sounds crazy, but it's exactly what you have to do. I have to sort of assess, like, is this for real, or am I driving to a trailer park to talk to them about a $30,000 aquarium? You know, it was, she was right by a client of mine, so I didn't do much checking. But I got there and it was a newly like single mother of 2 kids. And she didn't have a lot of furniture in her house and stuff. And I was just like, I can't tell people necessarily what I think, but I was like, I purposefully sort of, not by being rude at all, but being like costing way too much money, you know, because I was just like, I it was none of my business, but I just wanted to tell, like, take care of the babies, man.
Yeah.
You don't need a reef tank. I'll tell you that right now. I'm happy you're interested in it, but it's not. Man, I hate it because I've been in this industry so long, and it's like it follows the economy a little bit, but it's just like part of me wishes that people could really experience this. It's just such a cool, beautiful, crazy hobby. It is just like, and I'm someone with not much dough, and that's part of the reason why I do this for a living. I always tell people that because that's the damn honest truth. It's a hobby that outpaced my own wallet, and so I do it for people. That is exactly why I do this for a living. I still want to be in my hobby. I can't freaking afford it, so I do it for people. But so I guess I'm so touchy when people are like, oh, I want a reef aquarium, and I don't want to be the asshole that's like, oh, you got to be rich, because it's not true. But it's like, god damn, it's an expensive hobby, and mistakes are expensive.
Yeah. I was a very unsuccessful coral salesman in California because like there it's like all high dollar corals, but
Oh yeah,
man, I'd have like little tiny chalices and like they'd fly out for 300 bucks a pop. But
yeah.
then like I'd go by somebody's house and they'd be like, "Oh, I really want one of those." And you look around and you'd be like, "Oh Christ!" And like
Yeah.
I'd end up giving them to them for like 40 bucks or something like that. I'd be like, "Here, just take it today
In
only." And then I'm like,
and I'll
I'm
tell
an
you,
awful salesman.
yeah. No, but I'll tell you, as being in all facets as hobby, and then it's not just rich people that come into your store. It's not just rich people that call me. That's not what it is. That's interesting as hell looking hobby, but god damn, it's a steep learning curve, and it's and you literally can't do it if you're poor.
Right.
It's like, but I've had clients before when I was worked in stores that I would, then I delivered something to the house, and obviously I didn't say it to him. It was like, damn, you're poor. And like, it's just like a drug habit. It's like a terrible habit. It's like, man, you should save for your future.
So basically what you're telling me, Ben, is I shouldn't have took on a remodel and an upgrade
Yeah.
6 months ago because I haven't had a job in 5.5 years.
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for financial freedom.
And now I'm like, shit, I wish I had the 40 grand still, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's
No,
crazy,
totally.
man. It's crazy. I got a
I
lot of
always felt when I
expenses
worked in
coming up, dude.
stores, I'm serious. I always felt like a drug dealer. And let's be honest about this. I'm just telling you from my experience that this is for whatever reason, this is a male dominated hobby. And husbands would always come in and they would be like, "Oh, don't write the price on the bag. Can you just leave it on the receipt?" They couldn't have the wife like see it, and it's just like and then there was one time the husband brought the wife in and she goes, "You're like my husband's drug dealer. He's like has to be quiet about his purchases and stuff." And I was like, "I just have corals, I don't force him to spend money."
Yeah.
So I'd love to interject there.
Yeah.
Funny story. So I'm a biochemist and geneticist by trade. I
Awesome.
studied marine biology but I'm mostly a yeast geneticist. I'm a brewer.
Yeah.
Um,
I used to do that.
I spoke at the Boston Aquarium Society on like because they're freshwater, on getting into the saltwater hobby from like a chemist perspective,
Oh yeah, dude.
and
You got
tried
it.
to like take it down, really dumb it down. And my wife came because she's very supporting of everything and loves our reef tank. Well, she found out how much everything cost that day.
No bueno.
Yeah, so I no longer is it we go and she's just like, how much is it?
Oh,
She's no
you got
she
you got a
knows.
ceiling put on your
Yeah. Purple.
on your
Yeah.
expenditures.
Yeah.
No, I love it when people like you, when I come across people like you that get into it, because it's like, sometimes it's like a used car salesman or
Yeah.
just something from left field, and then they have to train their brain to understand these things, and sometimes they don't do that great with it. But I'm always here to like help put them back on the track. But I love it talking to people like you and like engineers and stuff like that. It's like you got the ability to rigorously hunt down the information you want, and a lot of it's like tangential. You just need to shift it to what it's already. It just
Right.
rhymes. It just rhymes with what you're doing.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a
Well,
lot of.
actually,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
But actually, I remember I saw a paper many years ago, and then they did a study, compared to like saltwater fish tank, reef aquarium compared to Prozac. Seriously, that's
Yeah.
not I was looking at, oh my goodness. So basically that saltwater aquarium definitely calm down people. That's why that if you see the Finding Nemo the movie, it's happening in a dentist's office.
Yeah. No, but see, that's what makes me laugh, because I can think of, while that is totally true, I can also think of the same number of reasons why a reef tank give you a fucking heart attack.
Oh yeah. Well then, so sometimes that what I found out is that people who get into the hobby and it's very difficult to leave,
Yeah.
and they always come back.
Yeah. But it's brutal too, because I'll tell you too, from my experience, like the turnover is brutal.
Oh my goodness, that's brutal. There is I read somewhere, and there is a study done by some pest group. Okay, shall not be named. Okay, it turns out that the average hobbyist in the reef aquarium, saltwater, and it's approximately 3 months.
Wow.
So, how they get into the hobby is to walk into the fish store,
Yeah.
and they get hooked up to it, and then they get out of the hobby average is around 3 months. So the conclusion from this company is try to sell these people as much as possible with
No.
these 3 months. And also because that manufacturer only benefit from selling new equipments. So the strategy of how they do the advertisement, the product line is all focused on how to sell people the expensive stuff for 3 months. And of course, that when people get out of the hobby and they sell their used equipment, those are not warranty. There's no warranty on it.
Yeah.
And well, so that is how this thing. Well, unfortunate that's what it is. So that also associated with how much incentive that the manufacturer or certain market vendor give it to local fish store, so then they can recommend more their product. For example, that many fish store does not sell Jabo stuff. There's no profit for it.
I actually like it. I use it on some stuff in there. I think it's great. That's like sort of a little, not a secret, but it's like, people would think I'm like nothing but a biz and that. I promise you, Jabo stuff, whatever does that. I mean, Toyota used to suck. Honda used to suck. Hyundai used to suck. Like, okay, did they continue to suck? If you're still thinking that Jabo's trash, you ought to go take a look at it because it's not trash anymore. It's it's not Ecotech, but look at the fucking price tag too. It's worth it's
Right.
worth. Man, you know how popular using Jabos for the what is it, a DCP, the main pump?
Oh, the return pump.
Just fucking great. Not a
Yeah, it
goddamn
is.
thing wrong with them.
So
Yeah,
all
the
my
tank
return
right
pumps
here
are the
has
Jabo.
Jabo pumps that have been going for 6 years, and I got them from Dong, and I've replaced wet side MP40s, twice
Tell
in
me,
that time.
tell me what's wrong with
Two,
them.
three
Not a
times. Yeah.
goddamn thing.
Right.
Occasionally, you'll have one shit the bed, you throw it away, get another one.
Yep.
Well,
That's it.
Exactly.
I have a
think it's a super
DCP
interesting, like,
15,000 on
psychological
backup
phenomenon.
under my sump right now in case the $900 friggin' Royal Exclusive shits the bed.
Yeah.
I should have just bought another DCP 15,000 and had a backup to that,
I mean,
Well,
don't
thing
get me
is, I
wrong.
use-
It's fun to play with. Like I have a client that has a 600-gallon reef, and he has a Royal Exclusive Bubble King EXT 3000, really expensive skimmer,
Hmm.
and it's a fucking joy to work with. But like I said, if a customer will let me fuck with toys, then I want to do that. But if it's gonna be a hard sell, then I'll just pick a reef octopus or something like that. There's no reason to try this attitude of like, oh, unless you have a Ferrari, it's not worth going fast. It's like, dude, this Corvette Z06 will blow your fucking doors off for a fraction of the price.
Yeah.
It's just what you want to look like on the other side, getting out of your fucking Ferrari or Corvette, whatever, or some shitty like sleeper car that's hot rodded out. Blow the doors off a Ferrari. It's different strokes for different folks. Maybe people want to look fancy when they're getting out of the car, or people slobbering all over them for their Bubble King skimmer. But don't fucking tell me that makes or break your tank. It doesn't. You could have all the gear in the world in a bullshit tank. I've seen that over and over again.
Yeah.
The gear will help you. It's not gonna make your tank worth a shit. Your brain makes the tank worth a shit.
That's my current system.
Yeah. Let me go real quick to what Dong said, because man, I'm very passionate about this. For my whole retail career, that whole thing pissed me off about the turnover rate and just fucking sell them something, get them out the door with something, all that. It's funny because no matter what store I worked at, I was always always ended up being the number one salesman. But at the same time, it was so fucking weird. None of the owners of the store, like, they always had their problems with me. So it was always a weird conversation because they're like, we don't like you don't do this, or you don't sell that, or this or that. And I'm like, well, who's the number one salesman? They look at the thing and like, well, you are. And it's like, well, then shut the fuck up. Go unlock the door and lock the door. Do your shit. You want me to leave? You want your number one salesman to leave? Don't be a dick. But I did this slow route, the slow thing, and tried to like develop people because my thing was always like every other salesman I worked around was that, oh, just sell them whatever. They'll be out in 3 months anyways. To me, that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that sort of bullshit attitude is part of why people fucking leave in 3 months. Because you sold them a bunch of either crap, overpriced crap, or things what they didn't need, whatever. You're just trying to sell them, send them out the door with whatever. So that attitude to me fucking stinks. You know, like the CChem, no, it wasn't the CChem, it was Kent Marine at the time. The Kent Marine salesman would come by. He was a cool dude. And he'd come to me. He's like, why aren't you selling this or that? Why don't you tell people, dude, if you don't fucking need it, I'm not telling this client that they need it. Well, you might just sell you endless bullshit. That's my reputation, you know? And I always, it takes a long time. Look, the easy money route is just get money from people as quick as you can. Does that give you a good reputation? It does not, because you lie and bullshit all the way in trying to do that. The being honest and being helpful and trying to teach people is this long, slow route. But in the end, you get a client that just, you say, hey, what should I use for this? Boom, boom, boom. Fuck, I trust you. I'm not going to question you. I'm not saying it's not good if people don't question you, but you get like strong clients that trust you. You want the client to trust you. You don't bullshit a client just to pull money from them. And so everywhere that I ever worked, I developed this long thing. And I know I sound like an arrogant dick saying this, but I remember there was one store that I worked at where the other salesmen started complaining because I had people fucking lining up. And I agree, I was like too long-winded when I would help a client, but I would look and there'd be people stacked like 5 deep, and the salesman, hey, do you need help? No, I'm waiting for Ben. Hey, do you need help? No, I'm waiting for Ben. But you know what? Was I doing anything dishonest? No, I was being fucking honest to people and they appreciate it and they'd only want to deal with me. And you know, that's all the dopamine you'd need for that is just people lining up to fucking talk to you. Why did they want to do that? Because I didn't bullshit people. I wasn't scamming anybody, you know? Sorry, that was my soapbox.
It's an
Well,
excellent.
I think that's great. That big and well, when we get to the coral side of business, that is even worse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So actually, there's some of the online vendor they shoot really shooting for one-time shopper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So the
rough.
basic, yeah, is very rough, and then they try to get you, I know, the first several shipment. That's it, because they know you are not coming back.
Well, shit,
And
and that's
after
how
you
people get sold like Spanish dancer nudibranchs and crinoids, basket stars. Like that shit, don't bring that shit in. Leave it alone. But that's how people get. Oh, that's what the online people want. They put a pretty thing, they put a basket sea star in there, and just noobs are buying stuff like that. And it's like, no, it doesn't even belong in Julian Sprung's aquarium. If it doesn't belong in Julian Sprung's aquarium, you have no business looking at it.
yeah, just actually that just like the Scolies. Well,
Hmm.
the thing, yeah, Scoli is one of the reason that several years ago Australia was banning the export that including ACAN. Well, the starting point I heard, that's what I heard. Don't quote me on that. Is from Scoli, because Scoli just no way you can basically propagate it. You
Yeah.
cannot aquaculture it, and every single one is wild. And then they live for 6 months and 1 year. They slowly start with deaths in your tank.
When they're
So
solitary, so the diver goes and picks it up, just like
yeah,
Trichophilia goes and picks it up. That's if you wonder why these corals that grow solitary in the wild or have become expensive, it's because you can't pull a piece off of them and leave the rest there in the ocean. You go remove that piece, it's gone.
it's
So
gone.
CITES is going to hit you hard for that piece.
Yeah. And also that I see people that try to frack the Scoli.
Never
Yeah,
worked.
Never work. One time I
You
was
get
talking
two
to a guy.
deformed scollies. Two deformed
Exactly.
scollies.
Well, actually, that's the best scenario. So I talked to a guy who is known to frack Scoli and not the one that on YouTube. Okay, somebody else. What happens? The best scenario, you have two irregular Scoli. That's the best scenario.
Yep.
But 90% chance you end up with nothing. Both of
And you
them
know
die.
how long it would take it to grow back? I'm saying in a great reef tank, it's going to take past 5 years for it to look
Oh
like
yeah,
anything. And
yep.
and chances are, you know, when I see people's turnovers, even dedicated hobbyists, you're probably not even going to have a reef tank for 5 years, unless you're one of the crazy people that are watching this.
Mm.
We're all the lifers. This is like Corals Anonymous for people that just refuse to. We refuse. We're the
You have an unhealthy obsession? Yes.
we just continuously fall off the wagon.
Absolutely. Hey, Ben, somebody in the chat from YouTube, they wanted to know if any of your clients, asked to start their tanks with any Gulf live rock.
Luckily, and this is the way I like it, my clients don't know the difference between their asshole and a hole in the ground. I have a couple clients that I consider like what I call pseudo hobbyists. They were hobbyists until they met me, and then they just handed me the reins. And I don't. I guess it's not being a dick, because any other professional maintenance person will tell you this. Like, I don't need you deciding you need to add iodine. I don't need you deciding you want to argue with me about protein skimmers. I don't need you wanting to change your lights without talking to me. If I know it sounds crazy, but if you've paid me to come in and do your tank, I need you to do what you do for a living and write me checks. And I'm saying, and otherwise, if that doesn't work for you, then fire me, cut me loose, because I'm basically hired to be like a nature artist in your home, and that's all I need to do. I don't need you. Oh, hey, I started putting magnesium, or do you think we should do ICP? Or if it gets to that, I'm going to start charging you consultation fees, because I am there to do what I do to your tank. You enjoy it. All you have to do is put food in. Don't worry about if you need. That's my job, you know? So the question was, do I get people asking me to do? I don't get people asking me to do a single thing except for maybe show me a picture of a fish and say, can we get one of these? That's as far as most of my clients go. But, you know, asking for specifics. So let me address that a little bit. So I'll do dry live rock that I've cooked for a while, but I do think it's important to at least introduce in some sort of veneer of actual live rock. So I do think that's important, because it's hard to get those bacterial populations, to get just the benthic organisms that are on there. It's hard to just, you're gonna put dry rock in there, and then any of that benthic stuff is gonna come off of the bases of corals, and it's not enough. So do your rock structure, but incorporate in at least some actual live rock. And I don't give a damn where it's from. I know the Australian stuff is real popular. Gulf stuff, I guess, is pretty good, but I haven't seen too much Gulf stuff that I like the structure of. So surprise me if it's out there.
Yeah,
It certainly would be cheaper than Australian.
yeah, you ain't kidding. I got like 60 or 70 pounds of it.
Dude, and the crazy thing is, like, you know, because I walked away from live rock so hardcore, they're shipping it in water nowadays. Like, holy
Yeah.
cucamongo, dude. That's why
Yeah,
it's so expensive.
there's a kid in Long Island, New York, that brings in that Australian live rock like weekly, and I mean, thankfully, I'd like to think we have a relationship, you know, like
Yeah.
whatever friendly, and I mean, it's expensive. Don't get
I
me
mean,
wrong,
if anything,
but it's
consider
not
getting a
retail pricey.
piece. Yeah, get like a piece or two, or split it with someone, take a piece or two. It's
Yeah,
something. But like, what is it, $1,000 for a box nowadays or something?
it's like $30 a pound
That's
retail.
what I'm
Wow.
trying to figure
Jesus.
out, if I can like
Crazy.
use mostly seasoned dead rock, like season it and then just bring in like a couple pounds of that.
For real. That's
fancy
what I'm
rock.
saying. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
So what are your two options? Don't do anything at all, or dig in to get a second mortgage to do it.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Just get a few pieces. It's better
Yeah.
than nothing.
That's what I'm
Get the
trying to-
mortgage. Get the mortgage.
Get the mortgage. Go for
Come on,
broke.
let's be real. Let's all go broke in this
Yeah.
hobby.
Well, if that's what we're doing, just fly me down there once a week.
Well,
Yeah.
if you're cooking rock for an upgrade, right? Like I'm doing that, it's just at a site, but I have like a 44-gallon brute trash can that's going to be, it's full live rock cooking. It's going to be added to I got like a Cade 2100 that I'm
I love
upgrading to, and I'm using rock from my water box 124.5, and I'm going to mix them together. But, the more I'm thinking, I cooked the rock from my water box for 2 years before I used it. And there was no light. It was just dark, completely dark. And I'm wondering if I put this into a shallower tub instead of just having it all stacked on each other,
Yeah.
put something like Australian live rock on top of it and had
Oh, yeah.
lights going.
Not,
that
I
has
wouldn't say heavy lights, not heavy lights.
not heavy lights, but just something to grow coralline, all the other, photosynthetic things. So it
Sponge.
goes
Yep,
through that
all the-
cycle, that additional cycle, because I started with SPS right away in this water box and it's roaring, but it took 5 months, even with the 2 year cooked live rock, before it went through all of its cycle. I mean, Dong came over in, I think, November, and I was going through a cyano outbreak and stuff, but I was also dosing all for reef, and that was a whole other thing that we figured out. But you think it would be worth getting a shallower kind of tub? And
My answer to this is hell yes.
yeah,
It's a much better way to condition that rock than vertically
Yeah.
stacked in a dark. It's great. You vertically stack it in a,
yeah,
but mostly what's going to happen is going to be bacterial.
right,
Nothing besides that. Now, if you put
right,
some good live rock in with it, light it moderately and spread it out a little
Yeah.
better, much better.
yeah. We've just
Something
been trying
interesting I
to
saw
control the
in,
humidity in my house a little bit, but like now I'm like, we already have the place I'm moving to and putting the cage. So I'm like, why am I skipping this one step that would make it so much, like, I've just thought in my head, I'm like, this is going to be so much better.
The people that just throw tanks together with just straight dry rock right off the bat and then and then hammer it with bright lights, and then they're like, why is it doing that? Come on, dude.
Yeah. I
Can't
remember
do that.
the 6 month dark cycle when that was big,
Yeah.
and then you turn it on and it's just like, oh, it just goes through. Like, I think that was the first couple years I was in college, like my little nano tanks I had in my dorm. I was doing the 6 month dark cycle and like hitting it with lights right before, I moved out.
Yeah,
And then
I was about to say that
yeah.
sucks. Like you're sort of cooking them in your dorm room,
Yeah.
and then you're like, all right, I got to move out of here. But damn, I was about to start the reef tank.
Yeah.
I see all for reef right next to your head.
That's so I'm using that for my 40, which is a softie, and I just have like a red Monty cap in it. But I dose that manually daily. But with the water box, with the amount I was dosing, I was starting to notice that there was a lot of cyano and diatoms growing. And once I stopped, Dong was the one. What's the chemical that's in all for reef you were telling me about?
Oh, hey, actually, that that's a calcium formate.
Oh, formate. Yeah, the
Yeah,
formate.
yeah,
Actually, I think all for reef is really a bad thing to do.
yeah. You talked
as
me
a-
out of it completely,
yeah,
and I just
yeah.
started mixing my own 2-part, and it's been great.
ESV or who you use?
Oh no, I mix it. I use Randy Olms Farley's
Oh, okay.
2-part, and
Awesome.
everything's been great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Hey,
all for
super
reef
quick question.
chemically has problem.
super quick before we get off the cook and rock thing, and then we can go to like different 2-part things. Are you guys running, I guess, 3 parts? Are you skimming in your rock tub that you're cooking rock in? Are you feeding it? And are you doing like constant water changes? Or are you just throwing a bunch of rocks in some salt water and letting that thing ride for a long time?
I do a water change every time I think about it. I have it next to a softy tank, so I don't do an incredible amount of water changes with the softies. They've always grown better dirty water for me. So once every 6 weeks, 2 months, I might get 10 gallons out of the 44. But that's it. I don't feed it.
Skimming in the rock tub?
No, I have no skimmer or anything. I'm just doing water changes, and I think that personally it's just a little bit of overkill. I get why you do it, but I like what's growing in the stagnant parts of the water, and I think that those are beneficial for, like, I started seeing tunicates and a lot of other like little sponges and stuff immediately in my sump because that's how I cook the rock for my current setup.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen that before. And I was like, oh, cool. It did exactly what I wanted it to, other than having to go through a little cycle before it got the core line on.
Gotcha. Ben, you said you always keep a big tub with some rock going. Do you have like a skimmer and stuff on that, or do you just
I
kinda have stuff?
I wouldn't be overly concerned about skimming. I would want to put some sort of input as far as nutrients, albeit, pretty small. So I would want some nutrients of some kind going in there. Wouldn't be too concerned about skimming. Water changes like once in a blue moon, because again, there's besides your input of putting flake food or something like that in there,
Yeah.
but I would want, it's hard to sustain life without NP going in there somewhere, so. But the other guy that was like, occasionally doing water change, I could see that would be awesome to take water out of the rock vat and then put that, soft coral water in there and then put the water change in the soft coral tank. So to be giving it, giving the rock vat water from the soft coral tank.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. We can go back to the two-part thing. I know this is like a dramatic and controversial thing now because it's like from what I've been seeing, there's like 18 different ways of doing two-part. And now they're talking about what is it, the bolus or something method of like just doing all of the bicarbonate in the morning or something like that.
Man, yeah, I don't know. That gets into that gets into I love it that very experienced hobbyists are experimenting and messing around with stuff. And I do say that all this time in the industry, like I've seen more of that type of stuff that I've forgotten half of the things that, people were doing. But I do caution people. I think I go back to that thing is like, look at your tank. Is your tank fine? Then watch the people screwing with stuff. But I don't feel like if your tank looks good and you feel pretty, I'm not even saying that if you're like, oh, my tank is perfect. Just you're like, oh, it looks pretty good. I feel like I'm getting somewhere. I don't feel like you should do all the crazy experiments. Let the experiments bear out, because obviously people put that all over social media if it's working good for you. Like I find it super interesting right now that Sanjay is like messing now ammonia, because all we've been talking about is adding nitrate. Now it's not about that. Now people are messing with ammonia. But again, what I don't like to hear is someone that's like 1 year, 2 years in the hobby, whatever, is like, oh, do I need to crank my pH? Do I need to screw with ammonia? It's like, no, you need to reduce your nitrates and know what a water change is and even know what the fish and corals you don't know shit about shit. So I don't like to see like beginner people screwing with these more advanced things.
Well, I think that's what feeds that like 3-month tenure in the hobby is like they get in and instead of
Too
just doing like
much.
a water
Trying
change
to do
every
too
month,
much.
they do all this shit and it's like blows up and it's like you didn't need to do all that.
Here, keep a leather coral alive and a damsel alive. Talk to me
Start
in
there.
whatever months. If you but I've had not maintenance clients, but when I worked in retail, just you got to have money for this type of behavior. But someone would come in and just like, oh, I applaud that they'll like study for like 6 months before they actually pull the trigger, but they're just jumping right in with like SPS, and it's like, dude, you're just, and I've seen it be successful too. And you just know that they were someone that was going to just be in the industry and, or not in the industry, but, keep a reef tank and be pretty successful. They still make mistakes, but I've watched people, jump right in sprinting, you know, huge majority of those people make massive mistakes, but I have actually seen people be successful with it. Take a lot of, I think it comes down to listening to people and taking a lot of advice and agonizing over this for months and months in your learning process before you have bought and purchased something. But, like I said, someone that's been in for 6 months and they're trying to figure out if they need to add a bolus amount of calcium carbonate. It's like, dude, what, what have you been doing lately? Like, what if you're trying to you're trying to swim in the deep end, you just learned how to doggy paddle. I mean, that's on you, you know. But different people have different aptitudes. So it's always like their wallets are different sizes and their aptitudes are different. So it's not on me to like be a gatekeeper. It's just I think what makes rational sense to do or not. Do you think you're going to decide to be a neurosurgeon and you in 2 years you're going to be able to crack open someone's head and mess with their brain? It's just, that might be a weird metaphor, but there it is.
Thinking about doing that now.
Yeah.
It's so much of humanity to like, I saw this thing that looks cool. I talk about this to Rich and we laugh at this because that's what happens. People see a magazine, they see a thing on social media, they see it at the mall, they see somewhere they saw a badass reef tank. And then just to go into that store, and yeah, I'd never want to be someone to burst someone's bubble, but like, oh, I saw this thing and I want to do this. And as politically, not politically, but as carefully as I could, I would tell them like, look, this is a process. This is a deep hobby. So like you saw this thing, and because I've had people ask, they think you can just replicate what they saw somewhere. They'd show me a picture from the internet, and it's like, dude, you're gonna need like 10 years of experience and tens of thousands of dollars before you get to that. I'll help you get there, but a reef tank is not something that you just like walk in and you're pulling it off. And that frustrates people. I think that might be one of the things that frustrates people because when they realize how much capital and time it's a very dedicated hobby. If I'm going to get to a place where I can show you reef tank and I have several people, especially part of a like this, like Reefers Society, like a club, and get people to go, whoa, dude, do you think I just walked up for like half a year and pulled that off? Like, it's just a long, deep, expensive, crazy hobby that only dedicated weirdos like us pull off.
The weirdo spot is right.
I might go back
yeah.
and listen to some things from Dong because I am a massive user of AFR. But I'm not also going to sit here and say like that I think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I just like everyone else, deals a lot with cyanobacteria. I'm in a bit of a gray zone right now because I used to use the Blue Life red cyano killer until I saw more Salem things, and then it started bugging me how much, ignorance is bliss. But then I would realize, like now that all this microbiome and information from Salem and stuff that I heard from Dong and other people, we start talking about the actual biology of the stuff. And I guess I didn't realize like how much, like using cyanobacteria killer is like, oh, I have ants in my yard, so I'm gonna just spray gasoline all over my yard. And certainly that took care of the ants, but it took care of everything else as well you know so it's like setting that forest back to after it just had a forest fire again, and then you're just doing this benthic succession over and over again. But it's crazy, and Salem and I have been talking about doing another little podcast together because I have used specifically the Blue Life cyanobacteria killer, whatever one it's called. It's from Blue Life, whichever one it's called, and I've been very successful with it, and the tanks look like cleaner than they've been in a while after I use it. And it will be, I think we all know listening to this, like how much of a pain in the ass cyano is. It's hard. I think we're getting closer to explaining why it would show up, but it's not easy, when clients say like, why is that red stuff there? It's like, man, that's one of the first things that was on the planet. It has 50 million different pathways to be successful, and it shows up whether you have $1 million aquarium or a $10 aquarium. It's just cyanobacteria. It'll show up. I don't care if you started doing this or if you're Julian Sprung, you're gonna have cyanobacteria. I can't tell you why it popped up or any of this stuff. It's just been such a pain in the ass. But I think we're getting closer and closer to maybe finding a better approach to it. And now I have a couple tanks out there that have a little patches of cyanobacteria, but I don't want to do the Blue Life now because now I'm like feel more comfortable that I'm doing something wrong.
Well, for the offshore reef, I think that the biggest problem is that in saltwater environment and the bacteria, well, what it does is that actually, if you look into the mechanism how the offshore reef works, it can scare you. But when we're talking about all this carbon dioxide thing these days, and how you try to raise your pH and minimize carbon dioxide concentration, what offshore reef actually does is basically internally bubbling carbon dioxide inside the reef tank and utilize the higher pH of the salt water is a buffer. So the carbon dioxide that generated from offshore reef via the bacterial consuming them, and you're basically like bubbling carbon dioxide straight into a reef tank. That's one thing, but well, that's probably fine because that for larger tank, and there's enough buffering capacity to neutralize that, so your pH holds steady. But the problem of a reef is that in saltwater environment, some of the bacteria will convert that formate into formaldehyde. That is the biggest problem. So sometimes some of the mystery deaths of the sensitive coral, it can be just because of that formaldehyde. For God's sake! So that is one of the reasons that there is another single part.
Because formate is like formic acid to some degree, correct?
Yes, it is formic acid, and then there's a biological pathway. You can either go to the carbon dioxide via the bacterial, or you can go into formaldehyde through a different bacterial, different pathway. So just in that is the potential problem. That not only that, that is why there is another they call the calcium acetate. That is the old version of the single reagent dosing.
Polyplab 1.
Yeah, exactly. That actually doesn't have this problem.
But it sucks because one, it's a sponsor of our show, but I don't give a shit. Like Rich and I are all about honesty, but like, Polyplab wanted us to talk about one, and I told Richard, it's like, I don't really like one because you have to shake it before you use it. So it doesn't work well with a doser. And we just refuse with our sponsors. Like we refuse to talk about things that we're not comfortable with or don't agree with. And so we're not talking about one, but yeah, that. So one uses that acetate, but it's an awkward product.
Yeah, the solubility is a little bit issue. So that is, but then the thing is that I will choose one that you need to shake it versus one that actually can potentially produce toxic substance inside your
weird,
tank.
Dong, because I like, and it's, I don't just grasp at the easiest thing all the time, but like I've been using AFR for like 3 years, I believe, and I use a shit ton of it, and I use it in 600-gallon aquariums, 300s, but I have had some things that bug me for a while now, unexplained bullshit. Now, as you know of reef keeping, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you just offered up this thing. I'm like, oh, that's it. It's not that, but it does make me wonder. But
yeah,
let me ask you, because there are so many different ways to dose and to add. Like there's always been that triple method, like the balling method.
yeah.
Like, do you think that's any good, or do you just think like ESV 2-part?
I will say ESV 2-part is as good as you can get. So, but here's a scenario though: if somebody never changed the water, then the balling method become important because of if people don't change the water, then you end up with the sodium chloride build up and then all that kind of thing. And basically, salinity start to rise. But if you do like even a monthly water change, fix that.
Yeah.
In that case, that I don't think the balling method is necessary.
Okay.
The ESV 2-part is just as good. And also another thing is that 2-part versus 1-part versus 3-part. Well, the 2-part actually I think is pretty simple and easy. And actually, there's another reason I want to bring up is that 2-part dosing actually is much more important than 1-part dosing, because the idea about coral consuming 1-to-1 ratio of calcium and alkalinity, that is not true. It was because that hypothesis was brought up is based on the calcification of the coral skeleton. So basically, one carbonate and one calcium, boom, form the calcium carbonate skeleton. So that is 1-to-1. But so these days, with so much research has been put into how coral, how they live, that kind of thing. Actually, a coral utilize a reef tank will utilize more alkalinity than calcium. The reason for that is that alkalinity actually is bicarbonate. So that's what we are testing. Yeah. Because at the regular pH, most of the carbonate form is in a bicarbonate. That's what we're testing. Basically, that's alkalinity.
Yeah.
So that bicarbonate, aka alkalinity, not only being utilized by coral for forming skeleton, also more important, that's the carbon source to
Yeah.
building the muscle.
Okay.
Yeah, and also your sponge, your trinket, your bacteria, they're all using alkalinity.
They're using, yeah.
Yeah, the more use of alkalinity than calcium. Your soft coral also use the alkalinity.
Yeah.
They probably use very little calcium because soft coral, they're inside, they also have the tiny micro calcium
Spicules.
carbonates.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they use a little bit of calcium,
But not a
but
lot.
they use
Yeah.
a lot of alkalinity. So that's why that the two-part dosing is much, I think it is more scientifically correct way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that way you monitor both. You look at your calcium, you look at your alkalinity, and then make sure that your basically the idea is not 1-to-1 ratio. But the good thing is that calcium level is not critical at all. You can have 350, you can have 550. It makes zero difference.
I
The
agree
reason,
with that. And
yeah,
I've been told by buddies, Matt Wandell told me this years and years ago, you know, when I was agonizing over levels of stuff. And it's careful who you say this to, because I wouldn't say this to like a beginner or anything like that. And it has caveats. But the thing is, I know this sort of flies in the face of the current thing, and I agree with it too. And Dong, I heard you say that pH more important to look after than alkalinity. So I'm coming off of that alkalinity train, and I've been watching so many podcasts and realizing that, like, you don't treat the pH like a redheaded stepchild, but you know, placing a little more importance on where the pH is. But anyways, to get back, what Matt had told me a long time ago was like, hey, just concentrate on where the alkalinity's at, and the rest of the train will move along. And he was saying on a lot of his things, he'll sort of, to a certain degree, ignore magnesium and calcium as long as you're doing like regular water changes and just peg the alkalinity.
actually that is correct. So I'm not talking about a pH is more important than alkalinity. I still think the alkalinity is more important than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So remember that back in the old days, what we have is called the secant reef buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that basically is just baking soda.
Mm-hmm.
That is the thing that people are dosing to the tank and then do water change. And people doesn't pay much attention to calcium and magnesium.
Yeah.
The reason for that is that if you do water change, your calcium magnesium is taken care of.
Yeah.
Because that coral take in calcium and magnesium via active transport. Basically, they go to grab them. They are not based on concentration gradient. That, oh, you got to have like 10 jugs of milk in your refrigerator so that you can have 1 jug on your table. No, it's not. You open the door, you grab one out. That same thing happened to the calcium and magnesium. So, and also that the concentration is not important. Seriously.
Yeah,
So
but
take care of
and
your
this is
alkalinity.
part of a conversation where I feel like people mess this up too, because they're like, my reef tank. What is your reef tank? Is it SPS dominated? Is it mixed?
Yep.
Is it softy? These are different approaches. So this is, Richard and I talk about the belts, like martial arts belts. So like you get like blue belt or whatever, or brown belt, and you think you know enough, but you just know enough to be dangerous. So you just learned what it takes to take care of a reef tank. Now it's like, what reef tank do you have? Like, pick a lane. And then there are different approaches to all these things.
Yes, yes. So then a lot of cases I saw is that for my customer is when they found me and then they say, oh, I have all this equipment, all this Apex, everything automatic, and then I'm keeping mushroom and zoensis. I said, what?
I see it all the time. I see
Yeah,
it all the time.
time, right? So they got sold of the thousands of dollars of this controller and the doser. And actually one guy was because they ruined the tank because that the doser, the keep dosing.
Yeah.
So, so even though there's no consumption in the tank, but then you need to be
But that's
dosing
when,
this.
and that's what ReefBeef was started for, is Richard and I started that to push back against marketing bullshit. Because when you first get in the hobby and you just don't know what's up and what's down, you're going to get assaulted by a bunch of marketing stuff, whether it's, you know, on social media or whatever. And you're like, oh shit, I have to have this to be successful. I have to do that to be successful. And that's what always bugged me, because the honest truth, you know, once you get to know what you're doing, is it can be much more simple. and we all get these things like, oh, am I supposed to be doing this? Am I supposed to be doing that? I guess I need a fleece roller. Do I need metal halides or do I need LED? It's just like, it's really not that complicated.
Yeah, exactly right on point. Is that I remember many years ago when Steve Tyree came to Boston to give a presentation. That was so many years ago. And then people were so excited about hearing all this fancy stuff. Oh, the plumbing.
Oh yeah, that's right. He was into sponges and cryptic zones.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and then some guy asked him a question: is that what is the ideal tank, reef tank for him? He said, "Oh, a glass tank, a metal halide, well, whatever that, and then a bunch of light rock, and a wave maker, and that's it. Simple. Do your water change. Keep it simple. Keep it just. Actually, one thing he said actually still basically burned in my mind is that he said that one more piece of equipment you put on your reef, that you got one more thing to break.
Uh-huh.
So keep it really simple. Basically, if for many new hobbyists, actually for many of my customers, and when they try to get into the hobby, I said, well, to get a 20-gallon tank from Petco and put some light rod in there, throw in an AI prime or whatever, small light, a nice Jabo power head, and keep some zoanthus and mushroom and to start with. And most important thing, do your weekly water change.
Mm-hmm.
And totally ignore all these bells and whistles. You don't need it at this point. Or then actually many of them has a very successful tank. They spend more time to enjoying their coral instead of worry about, oh, my fees roller is running out and
Well,
I need to
and
post this, post that. No.
and they'll see, I know it's real popular to not do water changes. And I know that that's the goal we want to get to. Me personally, I don't feel like we're there, even though I see pictures of gorgeous reef tanks. So it's that sort of confounding thing. I see people are out there doing that. So I acknowledge that. But, through my whole career, it's like, bumping up to people like bragging about not changing water. And then I see their tank and it's like, it looks like it. It looks like you're not fucking changing water,
You should
okay?
probably change some water.
So it's like that's cool you're not changing water and your tank looks like dog shit. So I'm not sure what you're bragging about. But nowadays, 2024, June, there's people that have badass reef tanks out there that are not changing water. That's fine. I'm not railing against it. But especially if you're new in the hobby, change your fucking water because you don't even know enough to not do it yet. You can get there, but you're doing things you don't even know why you're doing them.
Yeah,
To me,
that's
a
like-
water change is like, the tank is like a train going down the tracks. And I consider this is what I do as a maintenance too. When I leave or, after you change your water, the train is slowly coming off of the tracks. I show up to your house, clean tank, I'm putting the train back on the tracks. You do a water change, you're putting the train back on the tracks. Until you know how to keep that train on the motherfucking track without doing water changes, is keep doing water changes.
Yeah, that reminds me of like the beginners who like Dong said, the folks doing all this stuff with like a mushroom tank, but like the beginners who have a tank that's like just a few months old and they're talking about tuning in their calcium reactor and dosing trace elements and stuff. And it's like, dude,
You know
You
why
were
you're
like
having a hard time? Because you're
years from
doing
that.
too much and you don't even know what you're doing.
Right.
You will get there.
Exactly.
You will get there if you're dedicated, but it's a long trail filled with broken bones.
Right.
Yep, that's exactly true. That's exactly what it is. And for people, actually sometimes that people brag about not doing water change, they're actually doing water change. They didn't realize that. One example is that there is a guy, I probably talk about that on another show. There's a guy has a nice SPS reef tank, beautiful. And then he said he never do water change. But then I asked him that, what's your routine maintenance, that kind of thing. He said, oh, every month I flush my sand filter. I said, oh, really? How do you flush your sand filter? He said, yeah, well, there's a lot of water actually.
Oh, come on.
To flush the sand filter. And then he refill those water. I said, isn't that a water change?
It's called a water change, you dumbass.
Yeah, it is. That's another example, even funnier. The guy told me that he didn't do water change for 2 years. And look at his green slimer. Look at his coral. And then I look at the tank 2 year, and after 2 year, I said, well, if that green slimer in my tank, it probably quadruple the size
Oh,
of
yeah,
yours right now. Yeah.
It looks good to you, but if we put it in a different scenario, it might be massive compared to what you got.
Yep. So coral can survive, but striving and surviving is an entirely different thing.
Well, and Dong, here's another thing. Maybe I've seen this too. Maybe he just found the few species of corals that'll make it in his shit ass system. You know,
Yes,
everything else
exactly.
died.
Yeah, exactly. So one of my friend that he has he actually get into the accident, so he's stayed in the hospital for 6 months. So his tank basically is on autopilot. And after he came home and then he looked at the tank, and there's everything's gone except two gigantic Hollywood standard shallots.
Hmm.
Nothing else.
Yeah,
Those
and it
two are
looks
really
great,
big
and they
frogs.
don't require much. And as a matter
Yeah,
of fact, I
exactly.
love Hollywood Stunner, but yeah, it'll kill its neighbors, and it'll get giant if you let it too. But
Yeah,
I think it was,
exactly.
what was it? It's a lot of people have said this, but Jake said this. Like, if you leave your reef tank alone, it'll end up being 1 to 2 species, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's what'll happen, you know? Something will do extremely well and kill everything else.
That's like the
Yes.
scary thing about the what's happening with like a lot of the natural reefs now when they have like big bleaching events, and then everybody's like, oh, but there's 80% coral coverage is back, and it's like, yeah, it's all like one thing, because there's one thing that will, it's like the honey badger of the coral world.
Yeah. No, and
will-
again, because I have smart friends, it's not me, because that's above my pay grade to understand all that. But the people I'm around, you know, when there's that article out that said, oh, the reef bounced back, and then I'll go ask like Dr. Kevin Erickson, and he's like, it bounced back, but it's like 4 species, and it's just the
Yeah.
simple stuff. So we're losing biodiversity, and that stuff will bounce back. But you know, you're gonna have, instead of 80 different corals on the reef, you'll have 2. So if you want to call that a reef, I suppose it's still called a
Yeah,
reef, but it's
technically still a reef.
yeah. It ain't what it used to be. Oh, I'm sorry. I sometimes I don't think about that. I was cussing so much, but
Too late now.
yeah.
We need the reef beef disclaimer at the beginning of the BRF.
I mean, if you know that Ben from ReefBeef is on, come on, dude.
We're family friendly over here.
Okay.
fu-
I just
it's
saw
funny.
on Chris Sturgis, I just saw a little kid walk by and I was like, motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny.
Okay, he's heard it before.
Yeah.
One of my good friends in the club and in the chat here, Chris A. He's always
Oh, there's 2
his
Chris Sturgis.
AirPods, and I talk like you.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, it is what it is. And he's always like, I can't ever understand him when he's talking through his AirPods. So
Yeah.
he takes them out and he's like, dude, the language, you just dropped like 8 F-bombs. And I'm like, I didn't swear once. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I would be
Oh, no.
like, son of a mother's uncle, something.
You just get comfortable.
Well, I believe they call that the Boston
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of
So-
saying as fuck.
Yeah. Yep.
I blame it on my sister. My father's, you know, my father's a religious guy, but he's always like, oh, the language. And I'm like,
Watch the
bro,
language.
do you ever hear your daughter talk?
Yeah.
I'm like, where do you think I learned all these swears from? You know?
Yeah.
What the heck?
Let's
But
get some questions. I want to get some questions. People
You
want to
wanna-
know
do
stuff.
you want to talk about, somebody was asking if you ever have any failures on clients' tanks.
Oh, Jesus. Are you kidding?
Just had a couple of them.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like, oh God, like weekly. Like, yeah, and if you go watch ReefBeef, like I talk about a lot of them, but it's constantly. Don't give a shit who you are. This hobby, this endeavor. That's why I can't stand it. People are, I'm so good. I blah blah blah. Dude, this shit will humble you on the daily. You know, and I don't elevate myself any differently than a hobbyist. I know hobbyists that make me look like a fucking tool, but what I'm saying is like juggling all these things too. And then I'm not even like, they're not even in my house. Like I go see these things once a week or every other week. And it's just like, you just show up and you're just hoping it looks okay. Now I've been doing this for so long, like generally, yeah, the tanks listen to me, but you know, every once in a while, you're like, damn, you know, and yeah, so many jacked up tanks and almost 30 years of doing this professionally. Like I wouldn't even know where to begin. Just complete, absolute embarrassing failures. I went over one on a ReefBeef early on where, and this is just human error. Like you can tell I'm sort of like ADHD. But when I'm focused on a client's tank, I'm usually okay because I can laser focus on what I'm doing. But from time to time, I've just done, we all do it, we're human. I've done inexplainable things. I documented this one where I've had this client for forever, great reef tank. It's back when I run GFO. I haven't run GFO in years. I can't stand it anymore. I walked away from it. But and this is me, Ben, and this was only like 2 years ago. This is me with all my experience. Just inexplainably, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna double the amount of GFO in there. Yes, of fucking course I know not to do that. I did it. Why? I don't know, but I did it, and it just bleached the shit out of his whole tank. Stuff like that. And then I'm kicking my ass, and then I decided I think it's a good move for our show, but I decide like I'm going to talk about this shit. It's hugely embarrassing, and I wouldn't blame anyone for thinking, "Oh, this guy's on the show and he thinks he's an expert." Well, that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard of, doing that for no reason. But I wanted to share that because it's like we're all human, and I think before you do some move like that, I should have stopped myself, have some sort of protocol where I'm like, "What are we doing? I'm replacing the GFO. Why are we doing it? Well, because it's pretty old. How much am I putting in there? Certainly fucking not double for no goddamn reason. You got to question yourself because the human, will cause a fair amount of your fuck ups. It's not always the equipment. I don't know that you could quantify all that, but you are dangerous to your own reef tank for sure.
Yeah, the biggest danger is just like the desire to fix stuff. Like being an engineer, like I want to just fix stuff immediately. So I'm like, oh, like that's crazy. This nutrient got way too high. I'm like, calculate the exact amount of GFO to plummet it back to where it should be immediately. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
That's why I used to hate that. I don't see that as too much popular anymore, but the I think it was alumina-based phosphate remover, but its problem was if it got too full, it would re-release it, but it would just jack the phosphate down.
Well, and like most
like,
of those, like GFO, they'll pull out all kinds of stuff, not just phosphate.
Yeah, I mean, we always that's one of the reasons I love this hobby for so long. Like, I don't care who you are and what you think you know. There's just new stuff coming up all the time, new considerations, new ways to look at stuff. It's not easy, so it's like keeping this hippo on a tightrope, and it's constantly finding out better ways to do that. It's just a never-ending source of problem fixing. And again, you could be Julian Sprung and you could do some boneheaded thing and kill your reef. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, one thing I learned from you, Ben, is I listened to your ReefBeef podcast, and you talk about using the wet skimming to do water change. Oh, that is brilliant, man.
I feel weird because I don't want Jake used to attach that to me, and I know I didn't invent it, but I came up with it when I worked at the zoo, and I didn't get it from anyone, but I know that it was a thing that was done here and there. But and I wish I had data. Like one of these days I should get with Salem and try to put data around it. But it's a thing that I've been doing for like 10, 15 years now.
Yeah, actually, that ever since I watch your show and then about the wet skimming to do water change, I've been doing that. All my water change is done through wet skimming.
But doesn't it seem like a concentrated way to change water?
Oh, yes. Actually, it's very simple to see the result. Is that just looking inside the bucket, the 5-gallon bucket?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. That water compared to the water in your tank is dramatically darker.
And the bubbles that don't pop, all that, you can just see it,
Oh, yeah, you can just see it. So definitely you take out a lot more than just pouring water out of the tank.
Yeah.
So that thing is perfect. Great.
How I came across that, what year was it? That would have been 2002. I was a zookeeper at the Houston Zoo. I was hired from the get-go to do the guy that did the 4,000-gallon reef tank left. And so I took that over. And I got more exhibits by the time I left, but that's mainly what I was there for, the 4,000-gallon reef tank. We had a 12-foot tall RK2 skimmer, giant skimmer. And it's weird. They were, it was 3 tanks that were tied together with 1,000-gallon sump, but each tank was like 5'5", 5.5 cube, and I'm 6'3", so I would have to, a couple times a month, I'd have to go stand in each one of them, and get in and like scrub out things, like actually get inside the damn aquarium and scrub it. But what bugged me every time when I was finished is I would, we're talking about kicking up stuff in your reef tank with your hand. I was in the fucking tank, like me, kicking up the sand, kicking up everything. I'd get out. What bugged me is how like all this shit, and it'd be hazy. My exhibit would be hazy the rest of the day. Well, we had this chemical, well, not chemical. We had this substance from HW Wygant, the same people that make the salt. But
Oh yes, yeah.
and it's called hydrocoll, KOLL. And it was supposed to be for like when you put a new fish in, it was like a fish slime. So it was just slimy surfactant crap that I read up on it, and I asked some people. It didn't affect the water chemistry, but I just thought when I got out, I was like, man, I kicked all this stuff up. All my exhibits are hazy and cloudy with all this detritus. What I want to do is make the skimmer like go ape shit and pull all that out. So then what I did, I asked the senior aquarist if it was okay if I did it. And then he had to go ask the curator, and the curator was like, he knows what he's doing, let him do it. So, which was crazy because I sort of didn't, but, and I put a whole giant thing of hydrocoal in here, and this RK2 is just vomiting half the day. And then the senior was a little concerned because he was like, you're going to have to add a lot of water back. And I was like, it's fine, man. Cause it was puking all day, but then the tanks got crystal clear, and I just started doing it. And then when I left there to start doing maintenance, that's just what I was doing a lot of times. It can take a little long depending how you do it. But if you get a white bucket and just pull water out, and then take the other bucket and wet skim through the skimmer and just look down at them, that's all you need to see.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, bud, what's up? Can you have what? Cheese puffs? Yeah, go ahead. That's real life right there.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
Let the people have cheese.
I wish I had cheese puffs right
Cheese
now.
balls, yeah, cheese puffs. Little dude has no shame.
I got some basic stuff for you, Ben. What type of things would you tell a newcomer?
Be patient. Learn. You're gonna see cool, crazy things. Don't impulse buy. Control yourself. I see I would tell you as someone that devoted their life and has been so much in this industry is people have impulse control. And don't ever let that. I've seen so many people like buy a panther grouper, or even if you want to get down to freshwater, because I do freshwater too, but people are like, oh, I bought an Oscar, it's in a 10-gallon aquarium. Impulse control. Hey, I feel very strongly for the animals. I think sometimes I feel like I feel that more strongly than like the average person that I was side by side with selling in a store. They didn't care. They would treat animals like cut flowers, and I fucking hated that, because the whole reason I'm here in the store being involved with this stuff is I think this stuff is gorgeous, interesting, fun to watch, crazy. So why the fuck would I treat it like cut flowers? That's such a low level of respect. That's sort of, I feel so strongly about them. Like, if you knowingly treat aquarium animals like cut flowers, then you can go the fuck on to some other hobby. I'm dead serious. I don't give a shit about that attitude. And I've devoted my whole life to this industry, and that sort of attitude threatens my work. That sort of attitude threatens what we're doing here. And also not just people, end users buying shit. Fuck these places online that are selling basket stars and Spanish dancer nudibranchs. You can't tell, you're the one that brings this shit in, and oh, you didn't know that no one can keep, crinoids alive? Of course you fucking know that. But you don't give a shit because you're just trying to make money. How about sell something else, and not something that you goddamn well know doesn't make it? Sorry, that is soapbox shit too. But that's one of the things that pisses me off, is the people on my side of the counter that know better and just selling shit that they know just dies. Yes, a crinoid is awesome looking. Leave it the fuck in the ocean. Leave it alone. I tell my kids sometimes, I don't stop to think, and Richard and I talk about this. We're always on the verge of like thinking that our own hobby is disgusting, because it sort of is. Because I take my kids for a walk and you see a pretty flower and they pick it, and I'm like, I don't say fuck to them, but I'm like, what the fuck, man? You picked a pretty flower. How about leave it alone? Because then other people get to enjoy it. And if we all run around picking flowers, then some other kid's going to ask where are all the flowers. It's because all these other people picked them. And with aquarium keeping animals, like, hey, if you're advanced and you're going to tackle the question to the like a blueberry gorgonian or whatever they're called, or you're gonna, or even a feather star, you have advanced knowledge and you think it's this micron of food and people are doing it wrong, and you're gonna, that's fine, that occasional person. But if you just walk in a store and see a crinoid, cool, and then go home and go on a forum and say, hey, how do you keep this alive? Hey, asshole, figure that out before you buy that animal. And to the store owner, hey, asshole, you're just putting cool looking stuff in the store so people buy it, and you know damn well that it's not going to live. It's not cool. It threatens our hobby, our livelihood, all of this. It's shitty morals. Anyways, what was the original question? Because
Well, it's
Sorry,
the
that
moral thing that's gonna make us like sink or swim in the end, right? Because if we look like scumbags that just want to like drag everything out of the ocean and kill it, we're not gonna be around long term. But if we
The
show
reason-
like value,
And the
and
reason I
show-
get so jaded is because I've been having that argument for decades, and the wheel doesn't quit turning.
yeah,
But partially because of this bad turnover, every week you get people, oh, what's that crinoid? And I'm just like, here 30 years later, like, dude, figure out what it needs first. Then take it home if you feel that's you. But it's just, it does us no favors.
right.
Yeah, the original question was,
Yeah.
what mistakes to avoid and how to avoid, oh, no, that wasn't. It was what things we
Oh,
can tell a newcomer, but I have to mute
newcomer.
myself because I have a clicky clacky keyboard. And it's annoying
Oh,
as
but I
hell,
like it.
similar to my
Just
voice.
type furiously.
Yeah. No, it was just that. I'm sorry I went off on that diatribe,
it's
but
all
it's
good,
it's
man.
tangential. But it just be patient. That's a big thing pertaining to that tangent I just went off as. Find out things that you like. Just because you walked in the store and you're like, oh my God, look at that red fish. You got a phone. Everyone's got a smartphone now. Google it. Does it get bigger than your tank? Is it considered hard to keep? Do you have the right scenario for it? Figure out what this animal needs. Please, for Christ's sake, put some morals into that. That fish didn't fricking ask to go home with you. He didn't ask to be in that store. It didn't ask to be anywhere but the ocean. Have some level of respect to understand what the hell it needs, and have decent control of your own mental faculties to like, oh, I don't have what it takes to do that. But you're like, oh, shiny object, I must have this Oscar and I must put it in a 10-gallon aquarium. You're an asshole. Maybe you don't think you're an asshole, but you're endeavoring to keep animals that didn't ask to go with you, provide for them, or leave it the hell alone. That's just my light opinion on that.
It's a good answer. Sometimes
That's
I
my
see-
biggest thing. Just freaking learn what you're doing and don't subject animals to shit they didn't ask for.
Right. Sometimes I sit here at this, with this system, and I'm like, I got a pretty good size, like 9, almost 10-inch blonde nozzle. It's in a 200-gallon tank, and I'm like, shit, it's almost time to upgrade the tank that I just upgraded.
Yeah.
And then, and then I'm like, here was this fish just swimming along, eating whatever algae on a rock, and some asshole diver came with a net or whatever, scooped him up. Now he's in my living room.
No, but
like,
see, I'd wonder on that scenario, because you're an accomplished aquarist, whether you're going to say you are or not.
Yeah, I don't know about that, boss man.
Yeah, but no, compared to the next Joe Blow, is what I'm saying. Is that Naso happy? Is it fat, healthy?
Oh, it's like 3.5 inches thick.
Yeah, I mean, so it could be in a bigger tank, and that's an issue. But
I'm-
like, look at what wild animals go through. He could have just been swallowed up by a grouper, so he's
True,
living a
true.
good life. But
Yeah,
if you had him in a 50-gallon aquarium and you're like, I think he eats Alpo, and just not giving a shit to go online and figure out anything, then you're an asshole.
I think
Yeah,
what Ben
all-
just said
all
is you
my
have to get a
fish-
grouper.
What's that?
I think what Ben just said is you have to get a grouper. That's what you need.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm down, dude. I'm down. All my fish are thick in the midsection like myself, unfortunately. They don't miss a crumb.
All my fish are long and skinny like me.
Nice. I wish I was there, my man.
Hey,
Aerodynamics.
yeah,
But
more.
so parlaying off, like, what things would you tell a newcomer? What advice would you give to intermediate or seasoned aquarists?
A seasoned aquarist, I would say, hey, what's up? And that's about it. In an intermediate, I guess I would probably say I would. Now this could be taken arrogantly by someone, so I probably wouldn't actually say it, but I would just warn people of the brown belt scenario where you think you know more than what you really do, you know. But at the point that you're an intermediate saltwater aquarist, you're on the path and you more than likely are going to stick to it, barring bankruptcy or medical difficulties or any of that. I would get the feeling that if you're an intermediate saltwater aquarist, you're already got the addiction that's not like getting out of your blood, you know. And then if you're an advanced reefer, I'm just saying hi to you at this social event, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna give you any advice. Hell, just like Dong here, I'm gonna ask this motherfucker for advice. You know.
Sometimes I don't like Dong's answers. I just saw Dong, a few months ago, and just to get into, like, my next question is, like, you kind of already answered it about water changes. It's like, do you follow any specific methodology? And the reason why I asked that, because my last system, I didn't do a water change in almost 3 years. I ran Reef Moonshiners.
Oh
Full
yeah.
colors were amazing. Everything looked great. Fish were healthy. Heavy nutrients in, heavy export. And
The
then
guy's from here. The guy's from Houston.
yeah, he's originally from Germany. He's like some type of big name, much larger than my blue collar background. So I don't know.
Nah, brother, I'll take you any day.
Yeah, I mean, I had a 300-gallon Rubbermaid trough or tub in the garage, and, like, I had it insulated. It was up off the floor on cinder blocks, and I'd cover it at night with like a 1-inch thick styrofoam, whatever, insulation. And but some nights it would be like 4 degrees.
You're in Boston. Yeah, I'm thinking
yeah.
I wouldn't
Dude,
keep shit in my garage. I would just
it
cook
gets
it.
cold, man. It gets cold. And I'm certainly not paying to heat the damn thing. I mean, it's a good sized garage, but it's not huge. But I was having crazy temperature swings. You know what I mean? Like, I had 1,500 watts of heaters in there, and up, down, up. I mean, it was swinging like 15 to 20 degrees a day.
Yeah.
And I was telling Dong, and I was like, dude, I lost so many SPS pieces, like stupid high-end pieces, right?
Yeah.
And Dong's like, you're not gonna want to hear it. He's like, you haven't done a water change in how long? And I was like, this guy. I'm like, in one ear and out the other.
Oh, that was cool. Someone morphed into your background a second ago.
Yeah, that was my daughter. My daughter, come say hi. Hop in.
It's the lizard people.
This is my oldest. She wants nothing to do with like coral or anything. She don't want to hear it. But when she was like 5 years old, she knew
smart
all
girl, run away.
the Latin,
cool.
terminology.
And now here on Mike Lemming, apparently Mike Lemming is a French bulldog.
Hell yeah.
Or what is that?
No, he's got some
German
kind of,
Shepherd,
I don't know.
maybe.
That is cool. This dog, look, I've finally made it. Dogs are listening to me now.
This is incredible. You were talking about Alpo before.
Maybe that's what he's like. What was that again about Alpo? Yeah.
Yeah, I've just got a few words on Alpo.
Yeah. Oh, that's some shepherd.
Yeah.
Oh, that's totally cool.
Animal.
I can add that to my resume. I'm speaking to dogs now.
Dog talker.
Nice.
Oh,
yeah. So
I pissed him off. Here he goes.
So I had some issues to say this. It sucks because, like, I know every system I've ever had, I've used equipment, inexpensive stuff. I had the, like, finances to, after 20 years, like, hey, let me remodel the space, knock a wall down, get a big tank. I want to get the stuff that, I've seen the Joneses have, or, the stuff I've always dreamt of, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a single dad, I have 2 daughters. It's not like I can run out and buy a $2,500 or $3,000 German engineered skimmer.
Yeah.
But at this particular time, I was like, you know what? I'm buying what I want just because I want to buy it. Like, I've always wanted to buy it. So I went like Royal Exclusive, everything, full GHL, yada, yada, like
But you know
Well,
what's funny? Hopefully this is where you're going with this, is you find out that that gear's not gonna make you.
No, absolutely not.
It's a
And
giant
then,
waste of money.
and then the losses I had, like, took such, took all probably 90% of the sale or the wind out of my sales, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm like, this sucks.
I like to tell this story like when I was in my early 20s, me and a buddy, we bought mountain bikes for the first time, but we didn't have a lot of money, so we got like entry level mountain bikes. I think I got a special, no, it was a Giant, but it was an entry level Giant.
Yeah.
And but we lived in North Texas, and there's a pretty technical trail over there around Lake Grapevine. And
Yeah, you're not kidding.
yeah. You know Lake Grapevine?
I know the area.
Yeah.
I know a few times, yeah.
And so we went there, and we spent the whole summer mountain biking on this Grapevine trail. And I'm talking about like in the beginning, man, but we loved it. And we're 20 something years old. We're covered in blood. Our shirts are torn. We almost fall off a cliff. I almost broke my like clavicle, whatever, on a tree. We were just nailing it. But we had the, the benefit of being like 22-year-old dudes just going balls out. So near the end of the summer, we would get to where we'd see a dude on a Cannondale like trip over a root, and we're like chuckling, and here's us in our shitty bikes covered in, we're covered in blood and duct tape, and like hop over them to get to the thing. But there was a one day where this crew of dudes were out there, and I think they were like professionals, and they had like Cannondales, and they were doing the craziest shit. And it always reminds me, like, you can do a lot with shitty equipment, but if you're fucking good and you have good equipment, that's pretty fucking cool too.
Yeah.
Now these
Mountain
mountain
biking-
bikes, was this pre-suspension days? Because I too at one time,
Oh, bro, this was 1996, 97. So
I spent like 2,500 when I was like 18, 19 on a Trek. Like, I guess they're called hardtails.
yeah.
And then like years later, when just like front suspension bikes came out and started to be the norm, I went with a buddy and I rode that, and I was like, holy shit, it's like driving a friggin' Maserati compared
I
to
had the front
Honda Civic I
suspension,
have,
but that was it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's when I first started the uber expensive bikes. They had, the middle frame suspension, all this, and I was like, what the crap? And we were just poor dudes.
Yeah,
was like-
mountain bikes is a great analogy too, because like, I've modded bicycling Discord and everything, and like, yeah, you see that all the time where it's like, yo, I'm gonna pick up this like for my first bike, like a $6,000, $8,000 bike, and like, dude, like, do you know how to do like anything, like navigate a trail, pick a line, like,
I also played guitar, electric guitar, hardcore for 4 years, and I miss it, but I got too much going on to do that again. I would love, but it was, man, I could zone out playing guitar. I fucking loved it. I took lessons the whole time, but it started with my dad getting me a Fender Telecaster, and I screwed around. That to me, it was all I wanted to do was play Metallica and Slayer and Sepultura and stuff like that. That's all I wanted to do, and it annoyed my guitar teacher because he was trying to teach me scales, and I was like, just teach me fade to black, dude. Just fuck all that other stuff. But so I do that with this Telecaster, and again, like, we didn't have money, so like I had to have all these jobs, and I saved up all this money, and I saved and saved, and I swear I saved for forever. And we went to Guitar Center, and I got a Jackson that I had no business owning, but it was just, it's whatever zeitgeist is in your head. It's what I wanted. It didn't matter whether my dad or anyone thought it made any sense, or my guitar teacher. My guitar teacher made fun of me when I brought it to class because he was like, that's a better guitar than I have. And he's like, why? And I was like, I don't know. I saved and saved and saved, and I bought this $1,500 guitar. At the time, it had like double humbucker, and it had this like faded in purple sunset wood grain, and extra frets and all this shit. And it was just like, oh, it was insane. Well, 2 years later, I ended up selling it to someone because I got to a point in my like my age. It's like, all right, either like I'm gonna try to go do this professionally, or this is just a pastime. And why the fuck do I have a $1,500 guitar for a pastime? But these are these decisions for like aquariums. It's just, you see people not sure like what depth of the pool to jump into. And you just see so many people, and I swear, even companies that do marketing, like, oh, jump in that 15-foot part. And I'm over here like, dude, no, what the hell, man? Either the kiddie pool or at least, you know, in the earlier section, man. Because like, oh, let me tell you something, you know, unless you have this, you know, Bubble King skimmer, it's not going to be worth the shit. Or unless you have this Cade aquarium, or unless you this or that, or, you know, man, you can do a lot with a shoestring budget. It's just, and it's just, again, it's just people thinking that the gear makes you. The gear is not going to make you.
Right. We should start a band. I played drums 20 years every day.
This was probably, how old am I? I just turned 49. This was so long ago. I'd be lucky if I could play My Dog Has Fleas.
Yeah, same dude. I could probably still keep a 4/4 beat.
I
No problem,
I used
but-
to be able to play all of Fade to Black, all the
Yeah.
parts of it, but that shit is long
I
gone.
had a you know, whatever, elementary school, I played like alto sax or something, tenor sax, and I was buying some reeds and there was drums, like at, you know, this big, whatever, music store. And the guy got me like hook, line, and sinker. I was in there with my mother. I was probably 10
Dude,
years
that's
old.
their job.
And he was like, "Hey, do you want to come downstairs and check out like some drum thing?" And you know, and he was like a gig music or like I don't know if I want to call him a gig musician. He did like a lot of like TV commercials. He'd drive
Yeah.
out to New York City and like record and stuff like that. And you know, I was like, "Oh, that's way cooler than the saxophone." So I
Yeah.
started playing and same thing. Like I think for like the first probably like year and a half, 2 years, I literally sat and like played on a practice pad. I was
Yeah.
like, this sucks. Who the hell? I want to friggin' smash cymbals and
Yeah, and what I hear is like
all over the thing, you know.
it's like there I am with my 10-gallon aquarium in a neon damsel. And it's like, this is bullshit. I want to keep SPS. And it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you're gonna waste money. Like, you know, there it is, go for it. But no, you brought me back to another idea I had for good advice that I give people, which this is always crazy because I didn't give this advice when I worked in stores. But when people are just honestly asking me a question, I have no vetted interest in telling them some bullshit story because on the maintenance side, either you're having me do maintenance or I'm not. I'm just talking to you and helping you out, you know? But so I always say, be careful when you're getting advice from a person that has a vested interest in making money on you, because they could be really nice person, really cool, and really honest and all these things. But if they're not screwing over the store that they're in, they got to sell you something.
Right.
And it's not that pure advice. Like if I just ask Dong advice on something, he's just going to give me the straight shit. He's not trying to tell me something that's going to make him money. Maybe it is. I got to keep an eye on him, but
You need to take a flight up to Dom's house.
yeah. Oh, but that would just be my own self. Like, well, oh, I want that. I want that. And that's fine. But yeah, if you're getting advice from someone, like, because people would say, oh, this one store told me to do this. Okay, stop there. You said a store. They're trying to sell you something. And yeah, maybe an asshole, maybe the coolest, most honest dude you've ever met or person you've ever met, any of that, but they're still trying to sell you something. So I don't like when people get their early advice necessarily from a store. I like it when they get it like online or talking to people or go to a club and get your first advice from people who aren't trying to sell you a damn thing. Because then when you go to the store, you're sort of more guarded and protected. Like you have a little more information. But, you know, just going to get your first information and you're just prey. You pray to any salesman in the building, you know? And that'll be the classic thing. People always like, you know, oh, if I only knew what I knew now. Like a year later, this guy in the store was telling me all this stuff and it was all total bullshit because he was trying to sell you something.
Oh, I
Yeah,
get it.
the stores I like going to are like when you have like a sales rep who's like, you know, lowers their voice and is like, yeah, you know, like we don't carry it, but you should probably go with like this other thing.
Now that feels good. That feels honest because why would you tell me that it's not making you money or your boss money? Yeah, but he could still be full of shit. It's just
Yeah,
he's
for
not
sure.
doing it for insidious reasons.
Yeah, very, very new people like.
Then you come back 5 years later and it's like, remember you told me to put Tech M in my aquarium? Like, you motherfucker.
Tech M, that was the jam back in the
Yeah,
day.
remember that? Like
Yeah, I
cranking it
actually
up
found
high
a
to.
bottle recently in my garage, still like.
That's what I'm saying.
three-quarters
Inside
full. I
my
was
head
like,
is like all this
hell yeah,
doofus
man.
shit we used to do. And so when someone's like, here's this new thing we do, I'm not anti it, but I'm like, I'll sit back and I'll watch you. You're adding ammonia to your tank. It totally sounds legit. I'm a watch. I'm not going to go put that in my clients' tanks. And if my tank was doing well, that's another thing with experimentation. Your tank is doing well, and then someone says put 1,500 parts per million Tech M in your aquarium. You're like, oh, okay. Boom, bomb your tank.
It
You
was
didn't
good.
have to.
It was good for bryopsis
Yeah,
back in the day.
but how come we don't do it anymore?
It's not around. Well, that particular brand supposedly.
Yeah, that's true. That was Kent Marine, wasn't it?
Yeah, supposedly Brightwell something or other, but they changed the formula. You know, from what I read on forums, but you know, like you say, you know, you be careful on like
That's crazy. Well, I
whose
remember
advice you
back to
take.
the mid 90s when I was first working in stores and talking about the watching products come and go. Like 1995, 96, you had chemicals on your shelf. It was Sea Chem or it was Kent Marine.
Yeah.
Like none of this. As a matter of fact, like because I try to keep tabs on all the nepotism, whatever, like what company turns into what, and it's interesting to me because it's the history of the industry. But if I'm not incorrect, the Brightwell dude had something to do with Kent Marine. I could be wrong on that.
That's true.
Okay.
Well, that's like the guy that owns Captivate or something. He used to work for Brightwell.
Oh, but I'm telling you, on my side of the counter, the further you dig into this, it's like
It's
this guy
way-
was from here, this lady was from here, this
Yeah,
company.
they're all related. There's like five.
Oh, it
There's like
is.
5 people that control everything, kind of like
It is.
you know.
Yeah, it's the
Reefers
Illuminati,
Probably.
Back.
the
Hey,
lizard
Ben,
people.
I gotta
are trying
run.
to-
Thank you for the great
Yeah.
chat.
Hey,
Bye,
Ben,
Ben.
I feel
Ben,
like I'm
put the
talking to
caution
myself.
on one more time.
Ben P.
Yeah,
What do I
that's
got to
right.
do?
gotta find my glasses.
Oh, no, the other Ben put he had the wig and the glasses on. He was
Hell
trying.
yeah, I love it, brother.
Gotta get dressed back up for my departure. There we go.
There you go. The dark mullet. Where's my mullet?
Couple years ago, we could have been triplets. I grew my hair out during COVID. It was like
There,
mid back.
there it is.
You know what's crazy? I have this. Look at this. Y'all will like to see this. This
Oh.
laundry basket filled of costumes.
The
Oh, yeah.
costume box. I love
It
it.
just sits by me, and I'm just like, boop.
Do you at
Take
least
care,
share
guys.
with your kids? Take care, Ben.
No, they take my microphone cord. My daughter does all the time. And I come in here ready to record ReefBeef, and then I'm scrambling like, oh shit, where's the cord?
Yeah.
And so that's a
always
reminder
something,
to me.
right?
I got to remember to get another one of these cords.
You got to get a mic with an XLR on it. You can't take it anymore.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, earlier when Dong sent me a message, he's like, "Oh, I didn't get the email with the invite link." I was like, "Oh shit!" And then I was like, I used to stream like video games years ago, and I was like, "Oh, I have like legit microphones." So I like dug out the boom op, so I look official, you know, like not like I'm talking to a camera. And
I can't do that, man. First of all, video games are way too addictive to me. So I try to, I dabble in them, but I've wasted, dude. I don't even talk about WoW. I just wasted like chunks of my life on this type of stuff. But
Hell yeah.
Eddie
yeah,
still
yeah.
plays.
But oh, dude, I don't even remember what the name of the modules were back then. But I'm talking about WoW and like what years were they? 2001, 2002, 2003. So I don't remember what they're called. Something about blood, that edition. But oh yeah, dude, that was me. Just like that South Park thing. That was me.
Burning
Like,
Crusade.
okay, yeah, that was me drinking beer at 3 a.m, like pissing on myself because I was about to enter an instance and I wanted to get into Blackrock Spire, but I had to pee, so I'm like peeing in the beer bottle, you know.
Yep, yep.
But
I
oh,
played my chemistry lecture, so we'll
Yeah.
see how it turned out.
But no, I was talking about putting in the headphones on because then once I started playing like Call of Duty and crap like that, like, and I don't want to just sound like the old guy shaking his fist at the clouds, but like freaking 8-year-olds will like murder you in a nanosecond, and I don't want to talk to them.
Bro, you should try Fortnite.
No, dude.
My father, you know, like whatever. It's me, my father, and my he's 79, and my daughter's 19 or 20, about to be 20 and 22, and they're like, we can hear the grenades going off. I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, you can't. I got a headset off." And my
Yeah.
father's like, you know, so he'll send me a text at like 2 a.m. He's like, "Shut the fuck up." He's like, "You're down there screaming." And with the noise canceling headset, I don't hear myself.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm half deaf anyway from like construction playing drums without proper like PPE.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, I talk loud as it is. I'm like, I'm not even being loud. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, and like I'm saying,
I'm like 130 decibels, you know?
yeah, and you like log in, and then a 10-year-old kills you, and then he's talking about your mom, and it's just
Oh,
like,
it's the best.
why
I
am
played,
I
Like,
listening to you?
yeah, mountain bikes, it's the same thing. Like, we go to like the downhill park or something, go up there, and these little groms like half your height that are just bombing down the like double blacks, and just like, I'm gonna go hit this blue over here.
Yeah. And then you go over there and you introduce them to drugs to fuck up the rest of their life.
hell yeah, man. That's the way
No,
to go.
don't do that. Don't do that. I'm just joking. Hey kid, come over here. Look, it's cocaine. Who's
Not
messed up
wrong with a
now?
little
That's
cocaine,
terrible.
huh?
Sorry.
It's
Sorry
okay,
for
we're a
anyone that was
private club.
offended to that.
Yeah. We're not live streaming on the interwebs right now, right?
Oh, okay, good. Because if I want to be, I'm not very PC. So
Yeah, it's all good, man.
when you
Neither
see
am I.
me on Reef Beef, that is actually me on good behavior.
That's good. It's good. We'll get along great.
Yeah.
That's like Keith had me on, I don't know, 2 years ago about like, hey, what's it like? You know, like I want to have you on, like, you know, just talk about like what's it like running a club, dude. And I'm like, I'm not a tough guy by any means. That's how like started off with, because I was having some grief with some individuals that thought their shit didn't stink like
Yeah.
club members, you know what I mean? And I was like, listen, dude, like I'll be the first person to tell you, I'm not the person that's gonna swing on you, but if you press me too many times, I might smash your head against the wall.
Yeah.
You know
No,
what I mean?
that's
Like, it
that's
just
another
sucks.
that's another statement I have about the industries because like, dude, and I guard myself and watch my own ego, but it's like you go to some of these things, and I'm not gonna sit here and name names, but I'm just saying you just come across these people and you're like, we're not curing cancer. And you're not what's a famous artist or whatever? What's that Banksy? And you're not fucking Banksy or whatever. Like it's just we're all like creating things in a glass box, and some of us do it better, and some of us don't. Where's your fucking humility? It's like, and the hobby itself will humiliate you on any given day. It's just, oh yeah, I only mess with $300 plus frags, or fuck you. Green Star Polyps is cool looking if you stare at it long
Oh
enough.
yeah.
And those are the people that blame the gear, blame the products, blame.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's certainly
never their
not
fault.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what I hate is because I'll get clients that will be like, "Oh, can we put 15 tangs in here?" No, we can't do that. Oh, I saw this one guy on social media. It's like social media is whatever the fuck. It's a picture is a snapshot of something in one moment of time. Let me talk to that motherfucker and still see if he has 15 tangs in this tank, or if he still has a tank full of Walt Disney and Oregon Blue Tort and whatever, yada yada, or that this tank still looks this gorgeous, or this tank still looks good and he hadn't changed water in 12 years. Like, it's just a fucking snapshot. That's another thing I tell people when people are new to it and like, oh, I saw this beautiful tank, and it has something that's like I'm like a hard no on. It's like that's just a picture of something in a given moment of time. It doesn't mean that they're still successful with that, or it's working, or that they're even in the hobby anymore, or any of that. You see all and shit today with Photoshop and all this. I see tanks all the time that I swear to God that it's not even real. There's that one Viking something reef, but I believe that is real, where it doesn't have any substrate. No. Does it have substrate? But the substrate is like bleached white. And I think it's in Europe somewhere. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Viking reef. And it's just,
Yeah, he has like 14,000 followers or something on Instagram.
and I believe it is real.
30,000. Yeah, no,
like in
it's
reefing
yeah,
or reef
it's real from what I've seen,
Yeah,
and I think that's
118,000
right. And
subs.
I also believe that he's one of those Instagram people that started off with very good sized colonies.
Okay. And just
Like I know that's a social media thing, because I was like, oh, I have beautiful reef tanks. Like maybe I could get in on social media, which I don't have the social bandwidth to do. And I started talking to people like, oh no, you need to just get these like huge colonies and start off right away. And like it's the snapshots of the perfection.
man, and we freak out about these frags. Can you imagine what a piece of whatever, name your poison, that big would cost? Good luck finding it even.
Purple monster.
Yeah, you'd basically have to go to clubs and see if there's anyone that would want to give it up. You'd have to find people tearing their tanks down.
Yeah.
You'd have to, and it would just
I started listening to Reef Beef like 4 months ago when my daughter was born.
thank you.
And I'm just on I listened to an episode today. It's like 61 or something.
Oh wow.
I'm listening straight through, and Rich was talking about how he had shown pictures at MACNA, I think it was in 2022.
Yeah.
And people were thanking him for showing with Salt Creep.
Oh
and I was
yeah.
like,
Oh my
I was
God.
like, that's perfect. I'm like, that's because like when we were all like getting ready today, I had something back siphoning, and I'm gonna have Salt Creep all over the place. That's how the next 2 weeks of my life is gonna be. That's the reality.
That's a fun thing about Richard, and I will tell you, like, man, I don't even know where to start on this. I've always been sort of known for doing plumbing well. And so years and years ago, Richard and I already knew each other, but he paid me to come stay at his house for a couple days and redo his plumbing. When I got there, we didn't really go look at his reef tank. He took me to his crawl space under his house and all his filtration down there. And it's like, I'm not the most like perfect with OCD, but I do this professionally. So like, I can't install a bunch of crazy haywire crap at people's houses. So I'm a tad OCD, but Richard's shit was so appalling. No other words for it. Straight up appalling. I couldn't talk. But he was dragging me. We're literally on our hands and knees crawling underneath his house. He's like, and there's the this and there's the that. And I'm just looking, I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's almost like bringing tears to my eyes of how fucked up everything was. Cords going, your clothes got caught in some cords, and he's like, oh, push that back. That's my dosing line. I'm like, what the fuck? And like Salt Creep hanging off of his rafters with like wires. And so we finally crawl back out of there and we go sit on the couch, and he goes, what'd you think? And I was literally stunned because I really look up to Richard, and I'd been reading his articles before I ever met him and all this stuff. And I'm just being unabashed, like honest with you here. It's like, what was in my head at that moment was like, you're not very good. And I was struggling with that. But then to my left was his reef tank. And so he was doing something else. I started looking at his reef tank. And then shortly after looking at his reef tank, I was like, holy fuck, you're infinitely better than I am looking at his reef tank. And then I finally came to the conclusion that's like, I guess it doesn't matter what all your crazy fire hazard shit is. Like, that's a fucking work of art. So to some degree, different strokes for different folks. Does it have to be all this? Does it have to be all that? Really, the end game. And I know we got people that are like all into gear and look how I did schedule 80 and it's all this. What does your fucking tank look like? The end game is, what does your tank look like? The aesthetics of it, how long has it been set up? How have you been so successful riding this razor thin, ruthless hobby for so long? And you've made this like well-grown Richard does this thing. I know a lot of us do it now, but it was like crazier then, but just gluing SPS on top of SPS on top of SPS. He has like a coral head, an SPS head in there where there's 4 different SPSs just growing out of it. And they either kill each other or fight for, when people are like, oh my God, my this is going to grow into my this. What do I do? Richard's like, his fucking whole tank is shit that grew onto it. It will blow. You see pictures of it and, food, spouses, everything, music. This is subjective. Aquariums, subjective. But I would challenge you to stand in front of Richard's tank and just not like, just be like, oh shit, I got a little more to learn. But his mess under his house almost made me have a heart attack.
I saw a video, I don't know, 5-6 years ago or something with Jake. Jake did like a tour of whatever. And they went under the crawl space and I was like, holy shit. I'm like, I think I got things everywhere. I'm like, there's stuff everywhere.
You literally
Not in terms
have
of, like it being messy, but just like the limited space factor. I was like,
oh yeah,
holy smokes.
Stuff is on GFCI's because if he goes on vacation, it's gone.
Yeah,
and
I think he does, but yeah, it looks all like you're crawling and salt hits you in the head and you're like, what? And then you accidentally pull out a cord and he's like, plug it back in. And then he'll have like this little tube squirting in a little thing that has salt creep all over it. And he's like, that's where the water comes out of the calcium reactor so I can see it from the camera. And I'm like, that looks like a goddamn mess.
I
You know?
worked in a fish store in like 2004 or five. Like, you know, it was down the street from my house. I was whatever, a couple years in the hobby, and the kid was like, yeah, you want to, you know, like I was like subcontracted out by like the kid that worked there. Like he didn't want to work, you know, like type of deal. So I was like, yeah, whatever. And then it was like payday, and it'd be like, dude, you can either get paid in cash. It was $10 an hour cash, or something. I'll give you
Yeah.
$10 an hour cash, or you can go to the airport on Tuesday and pick up the incoming coral and fish and just break stuff off. And I was like, basically worked for free. You know what I mean? But it was great. I was like, oh, I don't have to spend money on this. But the building, like you talk about like salt creep, right? And like just shit everywhere.
Oh,
The
yeah.
building was like this 150-year-old building, and they like flooded tanks in there like nobody's
Oh, yeah.
business.
I
That
used
there
to
was
do that all
spots.
the
You'd be
time.
walking on the floor and it would be like a trampoline. I'd be like, how the hell is this building?
Man, if you that's a golden rule. If you work at a public aquarium, if you run a store, if you work at a store, if you're involved in this hobby like that, if you're at home, if you're a hobbyist, if you are transferring water, stay the fuck there. You
Right.
do not walk away from transferring water. Dude, I have probably dumped 1 million gallons in my career. I flooded an office once. Not I'm good at this now in my own business just because the stakes are so high. But like when I used to work at this pet store, I was transferring water at 1,000 gallon vats and I walked away and I put 1,000 gallons of water on the floor in this whole store. Just on and on and on. It's like, but I guess people are different, but I'm all like ADHD. So I'm like,
Welcome.
okay, turn the ball valve. Hey, what's over there? And just you hear something chug, chug, chug. You go running towards it, and then you start hearing, you're splattering when you're running. You're like, this is not good.
Yeah.
You know,
Hey, I just on this remodel, I just had my floors done. We put whatever, you know, that laminate,
epoxy, whatever, yeah.
something, you know, look, whatever shit puts together.
The
And
chips and all that.
my buddy's a floor guy, and he's like, if you spill water, wipe it up immediately. So it was time for me to take all this fancy Australian live rock, you know, and
Oh.
like create this aquascape. And I was like, well, I got to take racks of frags out from the last system. So I got these totes, right? And 27-gallon totes. I had like 6 of them. Filled them all up. I start like working on the rock work, and I'm like, what the Christ? Why are my socks wet? I look over, and there's like 3 of them had a crack in the bottom of the
Oh.
plastic. So I put like 50, 60 gallons of water on these new floors.
Yeah.
And they're technically like waterproof or water resistant, but if it's standing
They
water,
don't mean submerged.
yeah, like it where they butt, now
Buckle.
they're starting to lift. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, the floor's not even 6 months old here.
Ah.
Thankfully, I got enough, to replace some of them,
Yeah.
but I'm not trying to do that. You know what
So
I mean?
you can't really make a insurance claim off of that.
No. It's funny because he did my bathroom too, and he's like, dude, he's like, make sure you caulk by, it's a walk-in shower. Make sure
Yeah.
you caulk this. He's like, don't get water, dude. The friggin' shower curtain was outside the thing.
Yeah.
Dude, there was probably 15 gallons. The whole
Dumping water.
floor was like floating, literally floating, no, not on air, but on water for like 3 days, I was sucking that shit out, and I was like, man.
You were in there playing with your rubber ducky, doing
Yeah,
splish
damn
splash
right,
and all
dude.
that. Yeah.
I take a shower with full fins in scuba gear, man.
Yeah. Scuba Steve.
Hell yeah. But I don't know.
All right. We go a little bit longer, but I probably need to go cook food for the
Yeah, I don't
humans that I
want to keep
created.
you. You let me know. I like you, I'm ADD and I can't shut the fuck up. So
No shit.
I'll literally talk till the cows come home. But
I do too.
here's one for you, right? As someone in the business, do you have tanks or a tank set up at home in
Oh, yeah.
addition to client tanks?
I do. I have to because I don't own a brick and mortar. I don't run a store.
Yeah.
So my wife doesn't love it, but I have 8 aquariums in the
Oh, yeah.
house. And that's the trick too, is like, do I keep them because I want them to like look like something? No, they're just holding tanks. So they
Yeah.
don't look like jack shit. So they're disappointing too. And people always, that's why I have this big background. And then Richard will like be, you know, in his secret lab where there's
Yeah.
shit. Like, well, where's Ben's tanks? Like, my tanks don't look like shit. You can see my client tanks and you can ooh and ah on those, but like mine are just like holding fish where I do QT or, you know, holding frags that I cut up from clients' tanks. And it's, I don't want to show them to you and you're like, oh, okay. Yep. Ben sucks.
No. Dude, some of these guys, you know, they've been over here and I'm like, oh yeah, dude, I got this piece and this thing's growing good and da da da. And you know, now with all like the shit I've been dealing with, I'm just like, whatever, I'm gonna let it sit, let it do its thing. But now I got this big ass tank with not even a third of the corals that I had in 2 4-foot tanks.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know, I tell my buddy, I'm like, oh dude, you gotta come out, you know, like he's like, oh, I'm gonna come over and check out your system. And the guys will show up and I'm like, dude, it's a 6-foot tank full of Australian rock with some colonies that made it and you know, some 3/4 1-inch frags.
That's
I'm
so
like, oh, it's
that's so
disheartening
scary when we
sometimes.
start showing when we get to a level where we start showing each other our shit, because it's like I remember when I first started doing that and I'm like in a bubble because you know I'm the sole proprietor. It's me. I'm the one cleaning tanks. It's not super smart from a business standpoint, but it's just I consider myself like a solo artist that does this for
Yeah.
people. I don't want to be a babysitter. I don't want to sit behind a desk. I need to create. So I'm gonna be fucking 90 years old doing this, and I'm gonna die at someone's house probably cleaning a tank if
Oh, yeah.
anyone will let me. But but where was I going with that? My train came off the tracks.
You're a creator.
Was something. What were you talking about? You were talking about.
No idea.
Oh no,
You-
showing each other stuff like. Cause I guess I went in the deep end too because I've been a friend of Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, whatever, for
Yeah.
like 15 years. So really, when his channel was like a little piddly thing before he sort of sold it off to do saltwateraquarium.com. But I helped him a lot in the beginning with plumbing, and it's so frustrating because it's like the student has surpassed the master. Because I helped him in the beginning with plumbing, how to do it, and
Yeah.
then as years went by and I saw his plumb jobs, and I was like, motherfucker,
Yeah. We got a
way
couple of
better
those
than
guys
me.
in the club. There's a few guys that, you know, like, you know, they will like, don't judge a book by its cover. There's a guy that's like a software friggin' guru, like a engineer. This guy has got the most ridiculous plumbing I've ever seen. Where
Oh,
other
yeah.
guys that I
That
look
damn
up to
chemical
in the club
factory.
and in the hobby that are like stupid good at
Yeah.
growing massive colonies of SPS,
Yeah,
they're like, I'm like, oh, how'd you do this? They're like, yeah, we called so and so.
yeah.
Like, son of a bitch. Then
No,
I
but
said, oh,
like I said, I went in the deep end because Mark was coming down, and I took him to show some of my clients stuff. But just that feeling, like you don't want to see my shit.
yeah.
And he
No,
saw it and he was like, "Oh, this is really good." And I was like, "For real?" Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's like, "Okay." I was like tripped out to show you any of my shit because, like, I think it's good, and I didn't want you to tell me it's dog shit, and then I'm just gonna go jump off of a building.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. I got one more question for you.
Yeah, do it.
The train's going 90 miles an hour. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no.
What would
30,
you do? Yeah,
30, just 30. I
dude,
don't
I
go.
suck at math and word problems. So what would you do differently if you had to start fresh from today's standpoint versus back in the day?
Not get involved in the aquarium industry.
Hell yeah. What would you do if you weren't doing that? Would you have fat caps and cans of Krylons and bombing trains?
I would have nothing fucking to do with aquarium. I would have applied myself better in high school and gone to college, and I don't know what my aptitude would get me, but something creative, I suppose.
Yeah.
Not that I'm all, not that I'm all pissed at the aquarium industry. It's just it's like, God, dude. But on my side of the thing here, it's like making a living out of this is just constant struggle. When
Yeah.
the economy sucks and when it's good and just
Yeah.
anything. It's a disposable income industry. And so it's
No,
taught it's bad for me to say that because it's taught me so much and has made me who I am. Because
Right.
like like I said, I'm not trying to make myself out to be we were dirt poor, but I was just a punk ass kid from a little town. There's no way I was gonna be around millionaires or billionaires ever in my life. And
Right.
now here I'm convincing them to do things for decades.
Nice.
So it's just taught me how to do that sort of thing. Taught me better how to talk to people, to be charismatic, to, you know, I've chosen to be super honest and just brutally honest. That works better for me. I always joke, but it's the truth. You know, because everyone says, "Oh, I'm honest." Every motherfucker says that. But the thing is, because I truly am ADHD and unmedicated, and it's like my memory fucking sucks. And so when I lie, I have to remember the lie that I told, and it never worked for me, even when I was a kid. Oh, I
Yeah.
was over here. Oh, but the this and this. Oh, okay. I suck at lying. I'm not good at it. And so I was like, let's just be super fucking honest because I can't remember my own lies.
Yeah.
And then I realized after doing this for years and years and just being brutally honest in like a millionaire's home where it's like you're afraid to sometimes tell the truth about a particular thing, something you fucked up or something this or whatever. It's like people fucking appreciate when when you shoot
Yeah.
them straight. And then even though it was difficult to go there, the like social karma or credit you get from just being fucking honest and real, it's like cements you to people.
Yeah.
So you find out it's like, dude, you should be fucking honest because being a lying ass piece of shit doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah. Well said. Said. Do you look people in the eyes when you talk to them?
I I was about to
I
go.
look every which way but in their eyes, and then people like, why don't you look me in the eyes? I feel like you're lying. I'm
I
like, because
hate
I'm already thinking about, holy shit, there's an ant crawling on the counter while I'm looking at you. But out of this peripheral vision, I'm like,
this is gonna
salt creep on the side of the tank, you know, like,
this is gonna sound so goofy because this whole mindset of what state you're from, it's so stupid. And Texans are so full of shit, but I'm a through and through Texan. And it's just like I know it sounds corny and all that, and I'm not saying that a Texan is any different than anyone else. But if you grew up here, like I'm almost 50 years old. So if you grew up in the smaller Texas when there was more Texans here than every other motherfucking place that have been coming here. Like if you're this sounds chauvinistic too, but it's just the truth. If I'm talking to an adult male or now I'm an adult, like if I don't look you in the eyes and I don't shake you with a dry hand real hard, I'm gonna get shit. So
yeah,
I've grew up
I
with
get it.
that. And whether it sounds stupid or not, and it's not really with the times or whatever, but it's like I fucking shake people's hand hard and look right in their eyes and tell them
Yeah.
whatever the fuck. And
I-
it creeps me out when you shake someone's hand and they do the half hand. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
Do you want to,
Dead fish.
this is the new thing I'm starting. I've been trying to get it globally, right? When you shake someone's hand and you give it a good firm squeeze, right? You know, you're not trying to drop them to the good person on the knees, guy, girl, whatever. The hands don't really intertwine good. But if
Yeah.
you spread the pinky and you interlock pinkies, dude, try that with the next person when you shake their hand. It fits so
Okay.
much better.
Okay, brother. Maybe that
2024.
works in Boston.
Two for
If you,
Yeah,
Tuesday.
they're gonna look
if
at
you
you like
come
you
here
have
to
10 heads.
Texas and you start shaking pinkies.
Isn't that the Boy Scout
Yeah.
thing? With
Nah,
with the
man,
pinky?
Oh,
no
that was
Boy
like,
Scouts.
oh
No,
no,
that's
that's
left
like
hand.
Mork and Mindy.
That's
Oh,
left
yeah.
hand.
Oh no, it
right?
was this 2 fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the Boy
Oh, what the
Scouts shake
fuck? I
with
got
the left
balloons.
hand and they shake
Oh
at the
yeah,
wrists.
that's because you have Apple.
No,
If
but
you
not
do-
to sound like a doofus, but I'm just saying, you know, you come down here and you're talking to a contractor in Texas and you start wrapping your pinky around theirs.
Try it out.
Yeah, well,
Oh, yeah.
in Texas, it's a like in
It
the
ain't-
south of Texas.
ain't gonna work.
People don't know how to take it up here either, man. There's a lot
There's
of I don't know about now, but you know where I grew up, and I mean everybody was General Dynamics. They built
Yeah.
ships for the military. Was in the city I grew up in, you know, and
You know, it's crazy. And this is just in Texas. This is just anywhere, just worker dudes, like contractors, like electricians. Dude, you shake some of these dudes' hands. These dudes' hands are like soup cans.
I know.
And it's like, I mean, I'm tall and skinny, but it's like all the time because I'm around contractors all the time and builds and stuff like that. You shake some dude's hand and it's like, what the fuck? It's like a whole
I
steak.
know.
Like
I-
it is.
I've interviewed for jobs down in Texas before, and like the difference between a handshake can make between like whether you're getting that job or not is it can mean a lot.
And again, it sounds dumb, but if the person you're interviewing with is an actual Texan and it's like real big at the eye contact and the handshake, and if you flub that up, they're gonna be like, "Oh, he's a blah blah blah."
Yeah,
And it's like, all right, but maybe he's really good at IT. He doesn't have to shake hands. Calm down.
I worked with the Texas Back Institute in Dallas and Plano.
Yeah, I used to
and
work in Plano.
yeah, that we got everything done because I went to sales for a couple years, and you could get anything done if you just looked a guy in the eyes and were like,
That's all.
let me shoot straight. But like, if you just went to someone and were like, let me shoot straight with you.
Yeah.
Like, we're honest and look people in the eye. It was great. Everything got done.
Now, honestly, it's a little muddied because so many people have been coming here. So many. That it's just, Texas is just people from all over the place. Now, if you go into rural Texas, yeah, you're still going to see that. But in any big city, there's just, everyone's filled that city that's anywhere but from Texas.
How many people do you know talk like yeehaw?
Man, I grew up around people that talk like this all the time, man. Up in
It's
North Texas
wild.
like this.
I get buddies in Kerrville, and they sound more Boston than I do. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
My mom's from California and my dad's from Missouri, and I have this, I've been told that I have a Midwestern accent. It's just real sort of plain and down the middle of the road. But I mean, I grew up just surrounded by dudes that talk like this. You didn't even know what he talking about.
Yeah,
I grew up like I lived all over the place, but I mostly grew up in Memphis, and like
Yeah.
back when I used to drink, oh man,
I like that. I
it really
like the
comes out,
accent,
you know?
but I am sort of, I'm happy that I don't have it because it depends. It's funny if you're talking to another person like that and they're like, I like you. But if you don't, they're like, oh, you're kind of squirrely. And I'm like, dude, I've lived here longer than you have. I was born here. You're not even from here.
I think they call it code switching, where it's like, you know, you get
Yeah.
around people that talk like that, and you get right back into that.
I like the way the accent sounds, but I'm glad that I have a real just flat nothing accent, just whatever.
nice. All right, I have nothing more for you, but the real question is, what are you going to make for supper? What dinner?
I already made I cook it. I'll go into this real quick before I leave. That's a question that people ask me sometimes. I do this for a living. I have to have fucking hobbies. Jake Adams was only one of the few people that literally could do this 24/7 around the clock and not go fucking insane. I read history. I enjoy history as it pertains like warfare for whatever reason. I like warfare history, even ancient. And I like cooking a lot. Am I a good cook? I don't know. I mean, I've been cooking for a long time and I don't have to follow recipes. I enjoy it. I get into it. So by default, like I usually cook well. My kids love my cooking because I don't cook just to make food for them. I cook because I'm into it. And it sort of pertains to reef aquariums too. It's like ratios and adding stuff and it just whatever part of my brain likes that, I take well to cooking. But so I made lasagna last night and it's good. So we're just having that for
from
again.
scratch.
Yeah,
You
from
made-
scratch.
You made the
Well,
noodle.
a lot of the things that I will make, like I don't feel comfortable saying like, yeah, I cook and I'm a decent cook unless I fucking like went like made the pie crust, you know, didn't get canned peaches. I got the peaches and then candied them or whatever. Like that's more where it's like, you know, I made that, not like I went to the store and bought a fucking crust and threw canned peaches in there, whatever.
At Easter time, me and my daughter, you know, baked a lot of stuff, different Italian dishes and desserts and stuff like that. And I talked to some of the guys from the Long Island Reef Association, and they're like, dude, by meeting you in person, you're like a giant. And the way you talk, like, I never thought you'd be into cooking. And I'm like, dude, you don't get this.
That
fat
doesn't make any
from not
sense to
liking
me.
cook, you know, but they're like, how do you know how to bake? I'm like, well, my grandmother was off the boat. And, you know,
Yeah.
my father worked, my mother worked. And I, a lot of times, played hooky from school because I hated school, couldn't pay attention. And I sat my 70-year-old Italian grandmother and learned how to cook, learn how
how'd
to,
you do this?
you
How'd
know,
you do that?
slaughter animals and all
Yeah.
that kind of crap. And I mean, I'm not really
That's
into
how I grew up.
chopping
Well,
heads off chickens in your kitchen, you know, but
yeah, we left that life when I was about to enter fourth grade. But I literally until fourth grade, I literally grew up on the very edge of Denton. It was a country. I lived on a gravel road. My mom we raised rabbits, and man, rabbit stew is great. We used to eat rabbit stew. It's real greasy and dark meat, but it's really good. But yeah, she stopped doing it when my sister like named one, and then she was like, "Where's Fluffy?" And it's like, "That's
yeah, it
dinner."
sucks
My
when you give
sister
them
started
names,
crying.
man. Sucks when you give them names.
Yeah, we had pigs. We had we had chickens, and I used to watch my mom like break a chicken's neck, and it was like, God
Yeah.
damn. It was like crazy. It's just crazy compared to nowadays. I don't want to get
Yeah.
into all that diatribe. Kids today don't, you know, but it's like,
That's true.
yeah, just watching your mom snap a fucking chicken's neck.
Yeah.
And then she'd say, go clean your room. You're like, yes, ma'am.
Me and my daughters usually butt heads, over certain shit that comes out of my mouth. I try to be more with the times and like feelings and what I can say might hurt somebody type of deal, you know what I mean? Like, so it's not that bad anymore, but I mean there was a time, and I'm like, you guys have no clue. I always say like the majority, I hate to shit on people, but it's like anyone, and this isn't for everyone, but the majority of like people under 30, no work ethic whatsoever. Like,
I know we're like the conglomeration of
yeah, I'm
middle-aged angry
the
men.
asshole telling
Did all
my
the
kids,
women leave this
yeah,
chat?
telling my kids that I walked uphill 7 miles,
Yeah.
each way to school in the snow and.
No,
But
I try to be with the times too, but like, and I'm not saying I'm a hard ass, but you just see some people and like, but just soft ass
yeah,
motherfuckers.
yeah. My dad, again, last thing, he's old school 79. He'll say something and I'll be like, bro, what the fudge? I'm like, you
People don't
can't
say that anymore.
I'm like, you can't say that, Dad.
Yeah.
And he's like, I fought in Korea. He doesn't say
Yeah.
that, but that's the excuse I give to my
Oh,
kids.
my
I'm like,
grandfather
"Listen."
used to. My grandfather was a Marine in World War II. He's passed away a long time ago, but
Yeah,
he used to say that shit all the time. He'd say, "If it wasn't for me, y'all'd be speaking Japanese." Like, Grandpa, you
uh,
can't say that shit,
I
dude. What
know
the
it's
fuck?
crazy, dude. It's crazy, but
But he
yeah,
didn't say Japanese either.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
I didn't
Good
want to be.
looking out, Eddie.
Yeah,
Friggin' get us copyright
it was
strike
a it
now,
was a
Eddie.
Yeah.
shortened version of that. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Nah,
yeah,
but that's that. I never made excuses for those old generations, but it's just like, oh, dude, your time went past you, brother.
yeah. My
That,
my
that,
uh
that was cool a
my
long time ago, but that's not cool now.
when Trump and whatever the current president was like going a thing, we were having a dinner discussion or something. My father was
Oh,
saying,
great. Let's bring politics
yeah,
into it.
exactly. Politics and reef keeping, it's hand in
Yeah.
hand. But my father,
Should I
my
end
father said something, and my daughter was like, Papa, she got all mad. How could you vote for Trump? Like, I'm a minority. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? You got a house, like you're Caucasian. She's like, I'm a woman and I'm gay. And my father's like, that's your choice. And I was like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, you
Yeah.
can't say that. I'm like, now I gotta console her and like let her
Yeah, let's
cry on my shoulder for freaking.
yeah. Now let's talk about religion.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. We could go there on another time, but
I'm
yeah,
in.
to just not to cut you off, but to cut you off, and thank you very much
Yeah.
for the time and doing this. And I'm gonna quickly share my screen just because whatever.
Okay.
I gotta spin this wheel if I can find it.
Spin the wheel. And I'm gonna
Great.
take off.
Yeah, and you're gonna take off.
Thank you all so much. And we can always do this.
How
Whatever.
the hell?
I
Thanks.
feel like I have like too many stories to even. My good thing is the stories. Like I like with Dong and people like that, like it can just spit out like biological, chemical type stuff.
Yeah,
That's like I know a lot of that stuff, but I'm not the guy to like. And I could sit here and have a conversation with Dong, but it's just like, I gotta be careful because some of that stuff is not exactly my wheelhouse.
yeah.
But it's like crazy stories and ways I do stuff. I got that all day
Oh,
long.
I got lots of crazy stories.
Yeah.
When you were on Reef Bomb, I commented, I was like, shit, I haven't drank in, I don't drink anymore, but I'm like, I haven't drank in years, but if I ever saw you and Ben someplace, like
Definitely
I'd
have a
consider
fucking
having a
drink with you.
beer. He's
For
like,
sure.
I'll buy. I was like, not the answer I'm looking for, dude, but shit, but
Yeah. I always got to be careful with that because I'm sort of like I've always been. I'm sort of like Mr. Party guy, even though I'm 49 years old with 3 kids. I don't really party, but it's just my persona. I'm just here for a good time, And
Same.
like whenever we go to the events, everyone's like, "I'll buy you a beer," and it's like I can't drink that many fucking beers, so
Right.
just a couple of you
I get it. I think
trying to
you
get me
guys can see this
trashed.
wheel turning around, maybe.
Yeah. All right, guys.
I'm gonna spin it.
There you go.
And whoever
Scott.
wins is Chris A. GG.